Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got a bunch of us here. We got a packed house, and we got a very, very special guest, somebody that I happened to meet at the Cosmic Summit, and I think has some amazing stuff to share with us. But before we get to Chief Dinger, let me introduce the rest of the rejects with us tonight. Heidi, what is going on, Heidi? Please let everybody know what your deal is and where they can find your amazing work.
Of course. I'm Heidi Love of the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. I do have my own website, unfilteredrisepodcast.com, and you can check me out all those places. And of course, here at the Occult Rejects, which I'm very glad to be here. Thank you. And hi to all the rejects as well as our guests.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, Heidi. And I appreciate you being here. And I think it is already in the bottom. I wasn't sure everybody was coming, but I'm pretty sure your notes in the bottom already. If not, I will add them after the show. And we got Headless Giant. What is going on, sir?
How's it going? I'm the Headless Giant. You can find me on YouTube and X. And if you have any sort of paranormal stories, you can send them to my email at theheadlessgiantpodcast@gmail.com, and we will read those on Thursday and analyze them, and also give our little sigil of the day. So show up this Thursday and you'll learn about the pith hat for the Marines.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you showed me that. I was like, that's a good choice. Thank you very much. And yes, his thing should be in the bottom as well. And we got Julia, the Cosmic Peach. What is going on, Julia? How are you?
What's up? Thanks for having me, Nick. Excited as usual. Cosmic Peach podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And every Saturday on the Cult of Conspiracy. Thanks again. Looking forward to it.
Hell yeah, of course. Of course. Thank you. And we got Tim Constantine with us tonight. What is going on, sir? Please let us know what your deal is.
What's up, Nick? I'm happy to be here. My other show is Sixth Sensory Podcast. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And I love this topic. Super excited to be here. Can't really get enough of this topic, actually. So it's great to be a part of this and what you're doing here, Nick. So thanks. And yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. No, I appreciate you showing up. And we got the Ninja, Fratagin, the Ninja. What is going on, sir?
What is up, boss? Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the panel and the guest. And I am Jin the Ninja, so I am the proprietor of a terminally online occult audio e-zine, and it's a Threshold Saint. So you can follow me on X, Twitter, Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn, or IG at Threshold Saints, which is also the show account on Twitter. I just dropped 2 episodes today on the metaphysics of Freeren's Beyond Journey's End, which is a hot new anime, and as well Wicked City, which is a OVA from 1987. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you, Jen. I always appreciate it when you can make it. And we got someone joining us tonight. First time on the show. I met this dude at the Cosmic Summit. He's one cool motherfucker, and I wanted to get him on, and I think he has stuff that he can add to the show, so I'm sure you will see him more often after this. Tyrone, please let everybody know what your deal is and what is up, sir.
Hey, how y'all doing, everybody? Well, I'm author of Journey Through the Origins of History, bestseller on Amazon right now. I have a website, rebirthoftheword.com, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all kinds of stuff, just trying to get as much exposure as I possibly can. That's why I went to Cosmic Summit, met a lot of great people. It was fun. It was something that I'm glad that I got to experience, and I'm glad to meet you guys here today.
Awesome. No, thank you very much. And I will include your links after the show if you don't mind sending them to me so I can include them in the bottom. But yeah, man, I had a blast with Tyrone. And, you know, something I want to do plug to, he's had Ricardo on before. I've had Ricardo on before to cover his book. Tyrone did actually a really amazing job on actually covering his book. Like, he went through the book and actually had the guy on and went through the chapters. I highly suggest to go check that out because I was actually really done well. And I've looked at it myself and I was like, fuck, I'm jealous. I wish I did this good of enough job. So go check that out. Finally, to the man of the next hour and a half or 2 hours, how long this takes, we got Chief Dinger. Again, he was somebody that I had met too at Cosmic Summit. Again, you know, he was chopping it up with a bunch of the younger dudes outside when I was smoking my cigarette or smoking my vape, and they were blowing my mind. And, you know, I would see them oftenly and still, you know, have words with some of them, say what's up. They were chilling with Ashton. So I was trying to talk to him, so I saw them around a lot too. So please, Chief Dinger, let everybody know what your deal is, and you know, plug anything that you want to plug or advertise. Oh, you're muted, my man. There you go.
Hi. Yeah. Cosmic Summit was a blast. It was amazing. The vibe, the hang was immaculate. I just got started into this whole topic that I'm about to delve into 2 years ago when I noticed that the DC versus pulse welding fabrication process, the difference in welding processes was quite astounding, because pulse welding is a lot different, and we'll get into that. But it's just been amazing. I've happened to stumble upon some crazy physics that have been already experimented on and are just, I guess, an open secret, as my buddy likes to say. It's all out there. There is no novelty. There's nothing that's new. It's all been figured out. It's all been engineered. It's just combining it all is something crazy. And there's a lot that has been hidden. There's a lot that's been suppressed. I don't think it's any secret that things are kind of scary and awry. Even recycling is fake, as I like to say. I try not to get into that aspect so much in this presentation, because I think there's a lot of hope that can be had when you realize the unlimited energy you could have. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in this, is energy itself. The presentation starts off with the physics of supernatural. That's what I'm hoping to explain, is what is the supernatural force? What is the thing that dominates all of the cosmos? And I believe that's in a unified field theory akin to the electric universe cosmology. So that's where I'm coming from here. Hopefully I can make a little bit of information that way. There's a lot of stuff I packed into this. There's about 30 slides. Let me see. 35 in total. Some are better than others, and some I'll probably talk more about than others. But there's a lot.
I had a welding
stuff
question.
in here. There's a lot of people in here that are not generally known. So
I had a
Go
welding
ahead.
question really quick. Have you ever used hydrogen gas or Brown's gas to actually melt metals before?
That's part
I
of
don't know
this
if you heard.
technology. Yep, 100%.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of scary how much can be explained in an electrodynamic fashion, and that's, of course, where the electric universe comes from and comes at questions, and it makes a lot of predictions, and it's beautiful. And I heard Mr. Rebirth say he's very much into this stuff as well. It's hard not to be. You catch this electric bug, and it catches you too, because there's a biological side to this as well. This is a unified field theory. It explains all of creation. It's one of the many. Yeah, we're going to get into it. So
Awesome.
I apologize. I'm on my phone. My camera literally just stopped working as I was getting on here. I checked it before I hopped on, but things happen. So we're going to make it work. But
Of course.
um,
Real quick, if you
Yeah.
don't mind me asking, what was it that brought you to even go to the Cosmic Summit? What was the reason that it made you even want to go there?
Good question. I wasn't going to go. I really wanted to. I was kind of like literally praying for some kind of opportunity. And then I was hit up on X to have a cheap ticket. And I took the opportunity, and it was kind of a crazy nuts idea, but it happened. And yeah, I still don't know exactly why.
Oh, shit. Oh, boy. Fuck.
Maybe
Right.
this will get him caught up, because I think that there was a
Oh, that lag is horrible.
yeah.
It's almost like you could ask a question and you could wait for the question to repeat, and then he'll hear it.
Yeah, maybe this will help.
Oh, hopefully he comes back. Until then, I guess maybe we could tell jokes or something. Julia, got any good jokes?
They're already ripping my ass in the comments. I haven't even been here 5 minutes.
You haven't even said anything yet, and they're already on your
I
page.
haven't even
Girl,
said
they know you.
anything.
You set that
They-
bar. Bring it. Bring it. Come on.
Yeah,
we're
it's
waiting.
because Headless, Nick, and I pulled an all-nighter last night.
Yo,
We
that
were
was-
on a live show, and they kept roasting my ass in the comments.
That shit was
Oh
hilarious.
man,
Oh, we
2 to
lost
1. You needed me there.
it. Yo, that shit was hilarious. No, I was
Yeah,
my
I
face
know,
hurt by
right?
the end of the night. I was like, yo, this is crazy.
That was a fun one, though.
Yeah, no,
Nah,
definitely.
you can hold your own, no doubt, no doubt. I'm sure
That's
you
for
gave
sure.
him a run. Yes.
It was so much
I-
better after waking up, because man, that took it out of me.
Oh, really? Wasn't it like 1 o'clock or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or something like
Right,
that?
and I
for
had
you
to be at
guys?
work at 4:30, so it was,
Oh no.
Oh, shit.
Oh shoot.
Yeah, but at one point
I
he
made
was
it
like,
through.
See how much we love you, Nick.
Yes.
No, I know. He was like, "Yo, maybe I'll just go to sleep now." I was like, "God damn, thanks, bro." Okay.
Oh,
It sounds
man.
like Cosmic Summit
stay
all over
awake.
again.
Yo,
Yeah, just
yo, that shit beat me up by the time I was done, dude. From the last,
Bro, I had to
Oh.
drive home 5 hours, man. I was tired. I
Mm.
was tired, man. And it was fun though, because the first night I was out there with David for till 3-4 o'clock in the morning.
oh, wow.
So it was crazy. It was fun though.
But it was fun though. Yeah, it was fun
It was
though. I
fun. It was fun. It was fun. I'm definitely going back next year. Definitely.
Did either one of you guys get to talk with Raul from Pillars of the Past? He does like a lot of research in Peru.
No, I don't think
He was there. I saw him. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, so you
Yep.
know him?
I actually got his card because what he talks about is very interesting. So I want to have him on my podcast on there. I had to get his card. So yeah.
Yeah, man.
He's
He's knowledgeable. I had him on, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something. Very knowledgeable. I saw that he was there. There was a lot of people there who I recognized.
Yeah,
What does he cover?
He goes out to all these sites that are either documented and forgotten about or just not documented in Peru, and of which there are many. Like I came across his Instagram, and he's got a good YouTube too, but like the stuff that he was like bringing to light just blew my mind. He's like one of the best kept secrets on the internet. He's finding forgotten, abandoned cities, temples. He found an old stone circle that might be older than like Stonehenge itself. It's unreal that this guy's just not known about. So yeah.
I think I've seen some of his work. He just uses Google Maps, right? And looks down at all these places that have no sort of cultural indicator around them. And he just walks out there and photographs the places.
Yeah, he films himself going out there. He uses Google, he'll just like look at the landscape, and if he sees something that looks to be out of place, he's like, okay, I might have a city or a temple or something on my hands, and he'll go out there and check them out. And there's just entire unknown cultures that were there that history has nothing to say about. So it's incredible.
Probably right next to where all the giant bones are being discovered in Peru. Right?
Oh yeah.
It's interesting about Peru because there's this theory or idea that their pyramids are much older than the ones in the Giza in Egypt. So that just makes it more interesting to me because everybody follows the pyramids in Giza and say, oh, they're so old and blah, blah, blah. And then you turn around and hear about Peru and then you're like, now we got to change the whole concept and idea of this.
Right. Well, if you listen to Gregory Little and he talks about the Path of Souls religion, I was thinking, what if the Path of Souls religion originated in North America and went over to the Egyptians?
A lot of people can argue that. I mean, it's not hard to have, travel from one place to the other, I mean,
they were
off of nature.
They were certainly going back and forth between the islands and so like Easter Island and South America. Like they were going back and forth. I don't know where they came from. Like that's still up for debate. I think it's like, did they originate in North America or did they originate in the islands or did they come from some other land? But they were seafaring and they were traveling back and forth. So maybe they did come from one of our 7 continents originally and not an island.
Check the haplogroups. I like to follow the haplogroups because that tells you how people spread across the world from what they say from one location. So I would look into the haplogroups on that. That's to me, that's what I look at the most is haplogroups.
Right. There's so many different problems when you're trying to bring this stuff to academia because you'll present them the evidence and they'll be like, it must have been a contaminated sample. Like, I mean, what can we do? How do you get around that blockage?
Headless, because we've talked about it before and we both agree that a lot of these places are fucking break-off civilizations from Atlantis. And they all kind of like went their own separate directions. I think Egypt, this place, Peru, a lot of the ancient cities and civilizations were just like breakoffs from Atlantis, in my opinion.
So that's
I know
very
that sounds crazy, but
yeah, I think that's possible because like with this guy we're talking about, Raul, like when he was on the show with me, we were looking at one of the cultures there in Peru that's not really talked about much. And if you go in and look into their legends, it says that they came from across the ocean
yeah, dude,
and
that's
landed
what I'm
at Peru.
saying.
Yeah.
That's why Donovan wrote that song.
I love
It's
that
a little
song.
I love that song too. It's a nice little history lesson.
We should have a discussion on Atlantis, another one, if y'all didn't already have one, because I have some information. I bring David Stig on this. David from Cosmic, he was up there. He was one of the
Oh, I
debaters.
love talking about Atlantis. I love it. And I actually think that the Disney movie, like with Michael J. Fox, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Atlantis?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, they snuck some shit in there. I don't care what anybody says. If you watch that back, they definitely snuck some shit up in there. I almost kind of want to do like a breakdown about it.
Well, okay. Chief,
Is he back?
you hear us now, Chief?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And the delay seems to be gone. I guess like I said, suggested turn off the video. Should work fine now.
Yeah, I apologize. This
Bless
thing
you.
has gone to junk. I'm really sorry about that. Normally I'm organized and ready to go, but this seems to malfunction. Anyways, the amoeba continues. Just to say real quick, I actually got the chance to talk to the inspiration for Daniel Jackson, aka Dan Winter from Stargate. He's a genius man, very eccentric, but worth looking into because he's got a unified field theory to say the least, and he's a very generous man and open to teaching and all the good stuff. But he's the inspiration and one of the creators of the original Stargate series because it was disclosure, because that was absolutely real and it was based on facts that happened. Yeah, it was
Have
nuts
you
for
ever
me
heard of the Moray valve? Is this going to come up tonight? Do you know what
Moray
I'm
valve?
talking
I have
about?
not. Is that from T. Henry Moray?
Yes, it is. He was a Mormon. Yeah, he lived
Yeah.
in Salt Lake City. He tried to get a patent on a lot of this ether technology, and I'll let you continue, but it's very similar. I just wondered if you'd heard of his work.
Oh yeah, his dying words or something like that was, "Why didn't they help me?" Like he
They
had
wouldn't.
everything. Yep.
Yeah, they shot at him and tried to kill him, and
Yep.
then his kids are both in the military now, which is sus. But
One
yeah,
very down the line of this ether technology deep dive I started about 2 years ago now. Rho Sigma, the author, is actually named Rolf Schafrank. He's an Operation Paperclip scientist, and he was buddies with Tom Bearden. And if you know Tom Bearden, he was buddies or knew of Henry Murray and all the other rest of them. So this book is a never-ending deep dive. But
awesome.
can I present actually?
I don't
Yeah, you
know.
can too if you want. I could pull it up.
Well, we can do it either way.
Yeah, you could go on the bottom, present, and then I guess choose which way you want to do it. I do have your slides up now, though.
Share screen.
Is there a big time Nazi connection here with some of this technology?
Oh yeah.
Always is, right?
Nazis and Mormons.
Yeah, I was gonna see if the Mormons are in there, the Nazis are somewhere.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Am I sharing?
Oh yeah, my bad. I gotta pull it up. There we go.
Oops.
Oh shit.
Let's just do it again.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I got to allow it. Apologize.
This one.
There we go.
Yeah, now we're rocking. Okay.
All right, hold on. There we go.
I'll just go ahead and does this switch to slideshow for you guys?
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, from ether tech to the electric universe, basically, I'm going to go over some free energy sources, some people that created free energy machines, theory behind their sources, and the physics of what is the supernatural source that gives energy. Because as I'll go into a little bit later, that's what physics is all about. Energy. What is energy? Where does energy come from? How do we use energy? That's basically it. That's the gist of it. And by the grace of God, I had heard about the water fuel car water fuel cell when I was a kid, and decided for some reason to research it when I was like 22, 23, and just got into a rabbit hole of this, like wondering if it was even real. Is this process like feasible? Is it super exotic? Is it super hard to attain? All that stuff. And yeah, we'll go into it a little bit more. Deeper dive into creation. So I'm a welder by trade, and I just noticed that when you use pulse DC welding, you get hotter, faster welds and consume less electricity. I asked myself, why does it consume less electricity but is hotter? It doesn't make sense, right? You're just simply flipping a switch on and off. That's what a pulse is, per se, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a pulse waveform right here. You can see there's peaks as it declines. I didn't understand this, but that was the question that kind of kept leading me down. And, you know, this was my first question, is like, what is electricity? How do I make it? That type of thing. This is a good little quick read on all that. I wasn't going to go through it too much. I was just going to say that there's one part right here. Here it is. If you happen to keep pursuing such questions at the level of graduate coursework in physics, the buck gets past one level further, and you are told that an electron is actually a kind of excitation or defect in a pervasive electron field that fills all of space. But don't try to ask, what is this field or what is it made of? You are likely to be told that such questions are nonsensical and that the electron field is simply a mathematical object. Obviously, you know, I don't believe in purely mathematical objects, but anyways, that's the quote that I just read. And then, you know, my view really did change on electricity when I learned that everything has electrical components to them. Like lightning touches everything. It will strike everything. It will run across everything. It's just what lightning does. And for me, that was revolutionary because I went to public school and, you know, everything's awry and not what they're, you know, anyways. I learned that electrons in bundles are electricity. Absolutely basic for most, but revolutionary in my understanding because all protons have electrons. I thought to myself, why don't chemists know this? Turns out they do. It used to be called electrochemistry. I mean, it's just nuts. Even, and then Avogadro's constant, which relates the particle number in a mass to the mass itself, is basically just measuring protons and electrons. So that's straight up electricity itself. But, you know, we live in different times and it's not called electrochemistry anymore. So I learned that, then I, you know, kept that. So let me step back a minute. I started questioning what's the pulse thing with welding. And then I decided, you know, I want to make some electrical circuits and stuff. Who cares if I don't understand where electricity comes from? Then I got to thinking, what do I even want to make? Turns out I wanted to see if this was even real, if I could replicate it. And then Amazon, after I bought this book, recommended me this book, and it was like $8 at the time, so I bought it. Tried to see if I could debunk it. I couldn't. Everything in it is too real. I'm not even joking. That's basically the whole, this book is the reason I'm speaking to you guys today, because everything I've researched stems from here and here. But this thing is nuts. I've heard rho sigma have many interpretations as to what rho sigma, the words mean. I've heard it named prudent power, Cairo, all kinds of crazy stuff. If you look it up, there's not really good explanations for what it means. It's like fraternities pop up mostly. It's kind of stupid, but.
Can I ask you about electrons real quick? Because you brought up lightning. From what I understand, the electrons are up there floating around in the atmosphere, and the higher up you go, the more accessible they are. And then, so they live there, right? And then when a storm comes through, that's when you start to see the lightning, right? The electrons are already up there. The lightning's almost already up there, but it takes form in a certain type of way during a storm. But I've heard that when you put antennas up into the air, the higher up the antennas, the more access to these free electrons you're going to get.
100%. You know, they say the Van Allen radiation belts are the conspiracy theorists say you can't get to the moon because of the Van Allen radiation belts. Well, what are those radiation belts? There are a ton of dissociative electrons and protons, a bunch of molecules running around, whizzing around the Earth that are stemming from the sun and, you know, getting captured in our orbit and then, you know, rotating around. That same thing happens on all scales throughout the Earth. You know, when you think of what is grounding, even like where is this beam of electrons here that's striking the tower? Where is that grounding to, you know?
Well, that maybe there's the electrons up in the atmosphere, that's the above, and then the below version would be like the fault lines or the energy lines that some of the ancient cultures worldwide were like building their pyramids on, right? There's an above and below to this, right? Perhaps.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that. I got that a little bit farther down, page like 24, I think. The last 10 pages are kind of information dense, not so much in their presentation, but in the things I could say about them, and then the things that you guys could probably research off of the pictures and all that. But just to keep it moving here, so this was like about a year and a half ago. I was wondering, you know, is the Stan Meyer book even real? I linked up with some folks that are replicating the technology and are getting funding and are building. And yeah, it's extremely relevant to all of our lives, from water fuel to instant cheap hot water, which was his steam resonator, Stanley Meyer's, to infinite energy in an electrical particle generator. Stanley Meyer was a genius and introducer of eternal fire. Why do I say eternal fire? Because if you have a constant recirculating stream of electrons, you can make fire with that. You know, the water cycle on Earth is an infinite cycle so long as we have an Earth, right? Where does this come from? Where does Stanley Meyer do this in? The hydrogen fracturing process. So when you electrolyze water, you're disassociating the hydrogen and oxygen from the water molecule. Opposites will attract. So negative oxygens will go to the positive, and positive hydrogens will go to the negative. This makes HHO. The Stanley Meyer process says, okay, let's make HHO 3 times. Let's put a stacked array of electrolyzers. So we have 3 times production, just base pulse electrolysis. And the thing about pulse electrolysis is, like a welder, it's way more efficient. Whereas normal DC electrolysis, you get about 75% HHO. In pulse electrolysis, you get about 99% HHO, 1% steam.
This is the big reason why it's such a problem in cars, is because they're not using the pulse. They're using the DC from the battery instead of switching it over through the alternator.
Pulse, this pulse question I had really digs deep. It's it's insane. So Stanley Meyer did it stacked array 3 times, and then he had photon injection too. So he would have like 40 LEDs on the side of an electrode with a clear tubing, so the water can flow through this electrode and then get hit by the pulse red lights as well. That was the, what's it called? Oh my God. Gas processor, I believe is what Stanley Meyer called it. But basically throwing a photon energy at the already HHO dissociated water molecule further increases the fracturing process. So you're going to get actually a cold electrolysis process out of this, because you're going to suck in ambient electrons into your tube here in the gas processor. So that's the hydrogen fracturing process. Ether tech, like I said, it was too real. All these people, you start looking into them, and you know,
Casey.
Yeah, I mean, it's all wild. And to me, this was the most important book, or most important part of the book, because this is actually in reference to Dr. Pages, who I think did work in like the 1890s or something crazy like that. And what he says here,
When the axis of spin of the electrons is merged with the radius of gyration, we witness an electromagnetic propulsion by a Magnus effect. The electromagnetic spatial vehicle, once it has degravitated from the ground by injection of the required energy for the necessary time, will be able to maintain this state of degravitation theoretically indefinitely by creating a hole in the cosmic energy, ether. Such a hole would give an Archimedean effect. And if we recall our history of science, we will remember that it was Archimedes who discovered the principle of buoyancy. One wonders what the picture will look like when all the pieces of the puzzle are properly placed relative to one another. To me, that was mind-blowing, because you hear all these people say, we live in a sea of energy, right? And that was kind of rubbing into my brain as I was reading this.
That's what that's saying.
What's that?
I might be too retarded to be on this panel. I'm not sure yet. But is that saying that that's basically like we live in the ether?
Yeah, this is from the Ether Technology book.
Right.
Okay.
And if you follow the logic, then having a pulse in there will create a cavitation effect. And that cavitation effect is an energy multiplier, like with the cavitation.
What's the cavitation?
Yeah, I don't even know what that means either.
Okay.
What are you talking about? A cavitation?
When you've got bubbles that form around, let's say, a propeller under the water, that's a cavitation bubble. That's formed as a void within the water itself. They've been able to stabilize and actually produce light from these cavitation bubbles using sound waves. So the idea of the pulse is creating a stable cavitation, which increases the energy.
T. Henry Murray showed this for days and days. He showed this going at over 50,000 watts. He showed everybody that it really worked. And his book, like this is saying, is talking about we live in a sea of energy. And that was literally the name of his book, because he was trying to tell people like that it's literally pulling it. There's no AC involved. There's no any of that. It's coming straight from the ether. Like pulling.
So this is they use this stuff for like anti-gravity stuff.
100%. So I've put it down on in here somewhere where when you get anti-gravity technology, you also get fusion technology. You also get teleportation technology. You also get transmutation technology. You also get
which is why the Mormons
alchemy.
knew.
You get the physics of creation, and it's extremely easily recognized in ancient religious architecture, the stuff that we say is religious. But to speak to the cavitation thing, any bubble in water is a cavitation of the water, right? That's the space where there's not water. It's a cavitation of something else within that bubble.
Like the hydrogen water bottles. See, like I have one going right now. See all the bubbles going up, Julia? I don't know if you can see it.
I don't know if I can see you. I think you're too tiny.
You're extremely right with the pulse and the cavitation. What's happening in the pulse of electricity from a DC welder or electrolysis system or anything is that there is a gain of charge, a gain of electrons on collapse. So when you turn something off, there's actually a spike of voltage that goes off. That would be what Tom Bearden referred to as the it's what physics refers to as the dipolar moment, but they don't realize that it's Lorentz variant, not Lorentz invariant. Lorentz invariants ruined the world, so did Einstein, but we're going to get to that. Cavitation is implosion science, and that's what anti-gravity speaks to. There isn't technically no anti-gravity in existence. There is no and existence is not anti. Okay, I think we can all agree that nothing that exists is anti its own existence, right? Like it's already there. It can't not be there if we're, you get what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you say that T. Townsend Brown was interested in these you know what I'm saying? I got to say anti-gravity just so I can get the point across, but I feel what you're saying too.
Yeah. I actually, Townsend Brown was like the first or second guy I researched from this book, and I didn't know if his was real or not, but I ended up talking to somebody who appeared on the Jesse Michaels podcast about it, and I was asking him if he, thought it was real, if he thought it was legit, and his answers didn't satisfy me. So it was a real like, whoa, like there's something here to this. There's something that then I find out that the Townsend Brown effect is used on B-2 stealth bombers, and it was used to, decrease air drag and stealth capabilities and radar surveillance and all kinds of stuff. But
I like your approach here, man. I got to point that out. Like, I don't know you. This is our first time meeting, but I've gathered that you're a guy who's like stumbled across this information, and it's just been crazier and crazier the more you've looked into it. That's what it sounds like.
Oh my God, we haven't even gotten to the best part yet, which has to do with nature itself, and is, in my opinion, the most beautiful thing. Beautiful thing that's ever happened to me.
I love how you haven't even mentioned Victor Schauberger yet.
Not even yet. No, I don't even know if I put him in here. I knew I should have. I was getting to thinking about adding more stuff about implosion science itself, because I don't think I have too much in here, but it all speaks to the same thing. The torus, the toroid, the tornado. This is a force of nature that works on all scales. And a lot of people have figured it out, and a lot of people call it different names, and a lot of people have their own unified field theories of physics. So the unified field theory of physics that is naturally occurring to everybody on the planet and throughout the universe goes by many different names, and people call it all kinds of stuff, and people stumble upon it, I guess. Turns out there is no novelty, and all that remote viewing stuff is real, and you can kind of just unlock the secrets if you pray for it, if you look for it, if you ask yourself nicely. Like, that's literally the key. But yeah, I'm actually more interested in the like mechanical side of all this than the biological side, but you can't decouple the two. They come hand in hand because they create each other, right? The hard drive of the universe backs up both saves of physical and non-physical. So yeah, just to keep going here, that's when I stumbled upon the electric universe. You can imagine me, wondering what is electricity, and then I find an electric universe. I was literally like, pooping bricks. I'm not going to cuss on here because it's your show.
Oh no, you can go.
But it's like, wow, man, I can't.
We're all the
believe
worst.
this.
You can
Yeah,
cuss.
yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. But yeah, it's just, I mean, you can go through all this. Electron inertia has an engineering capacity a la electricity. Electricity inherently engineers the electron/electron field itself. The electricity and electrons are hand in hand. They do the same thing. It's just sometimes they're more stable, sometimes they're not as stable. So that's when I found this. The electric universe is a robust and holistic approach to the cosmos. There are no separate forces. Everything works on electricity. Some people say, the Higgs mechanism is responsible for everything. It's this quantum fluctuation in the quantum vacuum field fluctuations that is the thing of all fluctuations. But that doesn't help anybody. You can't engineer a fluctuation of fluctuation of a fluctuation. You have to define it into something that can actually make sense. And all of this stuff, I'll put it here. It combines physical understanding of van der Waals forces, Lorentz variances, not Lorentz invariances. Lorentz variances, Coulomb barriers, amps, farads, watts, volts, and ohms. It combines all of this into creation itself. The EU makes the unsolvable problem of the uncertainty principle a certain promise. There's a separation constant within the fine structure constant. All of physics is about energy. This guy was one of the guys I started talking to early on in my journey of all this about Stanley Meyer stuff, because he's one of the guys who's replicating it. And he's got a beautiful paper here. I'm just going to ignore it for now because it's in preprint. I don't know if he wants me to put it out, but H2 Colby on X, amazing guy.
I think I came across him recently. I think we might have followed each other recently, actually.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's sweet. He's making Stanley Meyer's technology. And he's kind of my canary in the coal mine. I've told him before, I'm waiting to see if you get murked to see if this stuff actually is allowed to come out or not. So, yeah, that's riding on his shoulders. No pressure, Colby, but no.
Again, just pretend I'm retarded. It won't be hard to do. What am I looking at right here in this on this chart? Like, what am I seeing here?
Which one?
all of it?
So
She wants to know what the EU is.
The electric universe is a brand new cosmology. You can think of it as that's what the EU stands for, electric universe.
Okay.
You can think of it as Einstein plus. So everything we know about reality, plus the engineerable facets of reality, because as we all know, we don't have starships and UFOs personally. There's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
The electric universe speaks to a unified field theory. Some of these are quantum experiments. For one, this is the absorption spectrum for hydrogen. So when we look at a hydrogen molecule, a hydrogen atom, it can have several different phases. It can have 3 electrons. It can have 1 electron. It can have 2 electrons, all kinds of stuff. But when we look at it, we get absorption lines. These absorption lines are what we call the uncertainty principle in physics, meaning we don't know what this is, but we know it's there. So we're uncertain about it, but we can measure several different phases of pretty much all the elements and then come up with an uncertainty principle about these elements and then engineer that. But that's not really helpful either, because you're not explaining what these lines are. You're just looking at it. You're not able to understand what these are if you just call it an uncertainty principle. So when we engineer whatever this is, this becomes a certain promise. And whatever this is, these absorption lines on the hydrogen spectrum, whatever this is, when this is engineerable, it unlocks everything, because hydrogen at the ground state is the energy aperture for all energy. There's a hydrogen lattice throughout the universe. The universe is already 77% hydrogen or whatever. You combine that with the plasma dynamics that the electric universe enforces, and you have a hydrogen lattice throughout the entire cosmos. It's all moving together too.
Using this model, how close are they to the starships and the UFOs?
Well, we're gonna get to that, because it turns out, like I said, there's no novelty. Everything's already been figured out.
Yeah.
Just to speak on this some more, this is the uncertainty principle here in math. It's Higgs, not Higgs, the Planck constant and 2 pi. It's delta. It's all kinds of fluctuations going on here, but there's nothing really. There's nothing grounding you here to reality.
Chief, have you ever heard of the philosopher Parmenides, who proposed that everything was actually part of one thing and it was not separable from one another? And he came out with Zenu's paradox. Zenu was one of his proteges who put forward the paradox of moving halfway towards a target and then never actually reaching the target, because you just move in halves. So the idea there was nothing can actually be separated. And for, thousands of years, they sort of put Zeno's paradox on the back burner until recently they're using trigonometry to try and solve it. It's an equation that's so simple, and yet it sort of speaks to the nature of what you're talking about. Everything actually has to be one thing for any of this to work. Motion would be impossible if we were 2 objects. It all has to be part of one unified field of the universe.
So I'm gonna skip ahead. This is page 33. This is basically the end of it. But right here, this yin-yang structure is exactly what you're talking about. And if a unified field theory of physics could explain this, then I believe that is what you're talking about. That is the separation constant that my buddy Colby writes about. This here is the structure of the cosmos that is scale invariant. And we're going to get to what this is. But yes, 100%. It turns out there's a ton of people that have a unified one. There's another guy that people obsess about, and rightfully so. His name's Walter Russell. There's another guy that nobody knows of named Oris Bedry. And, there's lots of people. You get these downloads from the universe because you can. There's physics that explains it. And that's like, people wrote about it. They made sculptures about this physics. Like, what is this? I'm going to hopefully explain what it is later, just to not jump too far ahead right now. But
well, I've even said on the show, you've probably never heard it before, but I've even said myself from a magical experience, I do think when you fuck with magic and cross the abyss, when you open up your eyes, you'll know shit and understand stuff you didn't know before.
Oh yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of insights. Just, it seems like, I call it synchronicity because I'm looking into this stuff already, but You know, you get downloads. The remote viewing thing is 100% real.
I believe
Reminds me of the Akashic Records. That's what it reminds me of.
Oh yeah, that's the morphic fields that Rupert Sheldrake speaks to.
Well, and I love the name of the DC capacitor that T. Henry Murray talks about. He called it the Corona Spark. DC capacitor. Just FYI, 1943 on that one. Very interesting with the little Corona business. I mean, they're
yeah. That's, I mean, we're gonna get to that, but
I'm thinking about what Randall Carlson said on Rogan. I don't know, maybe more than a year ago, but he was talking about how they were working on behind the scenes, working on getting this information into the right people's hands so it can never again be suppressed. I'm hoping that's what's happening here.
Well, I'm trying to put it out. I'm trying not to die. You know, there's certain things that I don't know. There's certain boundaries I'm not pushing in this even. I'm trying to push a lot, but there's certain things I'm not going to go over.
It's all really well known. That's the point.
Yeah, it's all an open secret. There are no private information. There is no private information. It's all out there. But
I like how you put that because you're right. There is no hidden secrets. You know, it's all in these books that people have written over the last, you know, depending on what you want to consider them books, for thousands of years. And it's really hard for a lot of people to pick them up because guess what? They got 9 to 5s and that's not enough time to read books in between that time, especially when you're working, family, trying to do something that, you know, other than, you know, keeping yourself busy. It's really hard. So yeah. No hidden.
I say that all the time. I actually read the books so I could talk about them on my podcast because I know people are so freaking lazy and busy these days. They're never going to read the books.
Yeah, I actually have a series on my website, on my YouTube, what I've learned from reading this book. And
that's a good idea.
I'll show y'all real quick. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I have all these little tabs on these books that I've read, right? And I go through each one of these tabs and talk about them. That's why when Nick was talking about the discussion I had with Ricardo, it was just tabs that I had in there that I found interesting. So yeah, that's why I said I like this. I like how y'all put that. No hidden secret. There isn't really any.
No,
got to find the time to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is not hidden, but at the same time, the general public either doesn't know about it or doesn't know what to do with it because we're living in this world driven by consumables. And you get these companies that swoop in here and they'll make you forget, just like they've made us forget everything. Like we have to pay a energy bill every month to a company. We have to go to the pump and pay for gas. We don't even need gas for cars.
Well,
but they make us forget all this stuff. So yeah, the energy, I mean, yeah, there's no secrets, but yet, I mean, the information is not out in the public yet.
It's too big to keep down forever.
We're gonna. Oh, I'm so close. Let me get to that point. But just to say about the book thing, yeah, there's a lot of good books out there that all speak to creationism in some aspect, and I've been fortunate to find some people on X and discovered this ether technology book myself, but there's a lot of books that speak to it, and you get a hint of it and you can start chasing it. And one of the big things is a pulse. You know, pulse with modulation is something that could instantly change power consumption overnight. And that's literally a few components you add to the grid. You add it to your breaker box or anything. If you have a pulse with modulation device, the switching effect induces a negative EMF kickback that actually gains energy on collapse and gives you more power out than you actually use at the breaker box or transformer, wherever you're tapping energy from. But that's just the pulse thing. I was going to say about the book thing too, just to end that real quick. The idea of AI nowadays is horrifying me because I'm seeing people get taken over on social media immediately. Like, it's cool and stuff, and I've used it to make pictures and I've used it to do some research and stuff. But nowadays I'm abhorrent about it and almost against it entirely. It's just people got to get back to reality here, guys. Like, we're humans. Like, yeah, the AI can be helpful, but holy smokes, you know, people give you a Grok. What does this mean? And it's like, brother, Do
It's
it
crazy
yourself.
you say that. It's making people more lazier than it was when Google was accessible to everybody, because
yeah.
they don't look up the information for verification's sake. They look up the information and Grok or ChatGPT will give them an answer that could be incorrect,
wrong.
but and they find out that later they were wrong. It's crazy because I've seen people, I've heard people talk, I've interacted with people a lot, and I can tell when they post something that's using AI. I can definitely tell, and I know that it's a helpful tool. If you use it right, especially if you're writing a book or a journal or a blog or something, it skips the middleman of the editor when you're trying to get the grammar correct, dot the I's and cross the T's type thing, right? So it's a good tool, but I'm starting to see people are abusing it to the point where they think they get on there on Twitter and they say, at Grok, is this correct? And I'm just like, why don't you just do a deep dive? If you really want to see if it's correct, you got to do a deep dive in it.
Yeah, it's like asking for a meme to give you an answer to a deep topic.
Yeah, it's a whole different form of intelligence, and it's not even. It's like, if you're super interested in the alien conversation per se, and then all of a sudden you only care about aliens, it's like, or you only use aliens as your researching topics or as your source information. It's like, all right, well, you're not an alien, so how do you know this is whatever? I don't know. I hate the conversation in general. I'm just over it. But I'll just wrap up this slide here. This here is the Aronoff-Bohm effect. These two pictures right here. Aronoff-Bohm effect is I hate when people name effects their names because it doesn't really tell you what it does.
Yeah.
But this is longitudinal electrodynamics in a nutshell, and that's another thing that I won't say too much about. Aronoff-Bohm effect.
Is that like when they suggest that, or they theorize that if two planets get close to each other, they basically start electrocuting each other?
Well, I mean,
it looks like,
yeah. You go from here and you go here. Imagine this going to this. Like, imagine this being a little tendril of the solar corona extending out past the sun's surface. And it goes, and that's just one little thing, broad spectrum. And then imagine this being this, and these being these, and another one right here. You can imagine if they're orbiting and then lining up, sometimes those electrons are going to line up and there's going to be a zap.
So could that be what happened to the Astro Belt? Because see, you hitting the nail on there for me.
You got that shit completely different. Holy fuck.
Well, there's nodes of creation, there's nodes of disruption, right? So if you have
that is booked out.
There's a couple different ways to come at this. One is whispering galleries. Whispering galleries are a thing in antennas and radars that are little flows of non-signal, but that still pick up the signal. They whisper in their gallery. It's a little weird thing. That speaks to combining a signal from a non-signal area, but there's also the opposite of that, right? Like you can have two things that just tear each other apart in their orbits, or when they get to a certain part of their orbit, or all kinds of things. What's very beautiful about our solar system is its scale invariant itself. The sun is a hydrogen atom. We are a very stable orbit around this sun, and therefore the Earth is actually boiling life off. The Earth is a very radiant device. It is a 0-point energy harvester and extractor and combiner all in one spot. That's why life exists, and that's the scale invariant reaction throughout the cosmos. The electric universe here has a robust and holistic approach, meaning life can pop up where life can pop up. It's not a if, it's not a what, it's just it happens. The good news is, just to jump ahead a little bit.
Before you get to the next thing, there was something I just wanted to say real quick because it reminded me of when you were talking about. I saw somebody post about gases, And it never clicked. And maybe it's almost like the same type of like technology or idea. But there was times when I covered, me and Teresa had covered weather manipulation patents on the show. And they were emitting some gas out, and then like the thing up in the sky was then like sending like a pulse, and like it was using the gas as a conduit into the clouds of the sky.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I'm like, oh, it's like almost like the same shit you were explaining before with like the person said on the bottom using gas to like transmit like electricity through it.
Think of gas, think of solid, think of matter, think of it all as the same thing. It doesn't have to be fluidic. It can be rigid. It can be static. It can be solid. But it is all fluidic in the sense that it can be torn apart and literally ripped to gas, to plasma, to a liquid state. You can melt it down. All matter has some kind of phase transition to it, meaning, we're all talking about a lot of stuff here. I get to that right around here, actually. So this just says the electric universe cosmology. It explains stars, dark matter. It's a new look on established physics, macroscopic and microscopic phenomena. Electricity is the key force shaping the universe. So speak to the gas thing. How is all this gas in the universe, right, stable? Why is it not a ball? Why is gravity not pushing, pulling, stretching, combining, cavitating all this together? Gravity is not doing its job here, right? There's obviously a lot of this gas in comparison to the background, but it's not, it's not congealed. What's going on here? Well, this here is an arc. This is a boundary layer. This is a boundary condition. You can think of this as being one giant magnetic sheath. And this is plasma. Because in the vacuum is like an ultra dense, super light, super fluid gas. The hydrogen lattice of continua permeates everything. The hydrogen lattice of continua is also filled with neutrons. So that is the neutrino-verse as well. It's mostly neutrons. Most of the electrons actually bunch up and stuff like this, right? That's responsible for gravity's electron bundling and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, this is a giant magnetic sheath in the universe. This is a boundary layer.
Now, I think it's important to note that the plasma has a charge between each one of those different particles, and it creates kind of a conscious neural network out of the particles within those nebula.
Yep. Plasma in a vacuum is self-organizing.
Right.
Are we talking about sentience here?
This is the origin of sentience, yeah. In
consciousness.
Some sense. So you think of the Earth. The Earth is a massive zero-point energy neutrino bundler device. It's sitting here in the perfect zone between the Earth and the outer gas giants, even though they're not completely made of gas. It's sitting here in between all this in the perfect radiant zone between the sun and the outer gas giants to harness all this stuff, all this neutrino matter. Therefore, life arises. Humans are neutrino bundlers. A buddy of mine told me that Plato's shadows, or the shadows on Plato's cave, are literally your hands. You can make the shadow yourself. And this principles of plasma physics for engineers and scientists, that's creation.
Well, the electric field that we were talking about, it looked like you were about to get to that too, because I saw you had up a slide with like some plants and stuff. But the electric field is a continuation of this plasma, substance.
Yeah. So electromagnetic compatibility theory is, the study of how electromagnetics work in everything.
So I think what I was trying to say is that plasma
go ahead.
Up in space is connected to our atmosphere and our electric field.
Well, there's two nodes.
Go ahead.
There's two nodes around the moon where most of the plasma in our upper atmosphere collects. Are you there?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
And that's at 60 degrees, I believe, north and south of the.
So you're
moon.
referring to Ketu and Rahu, Headless?
All I'm saying is that's where the gravitational fields are actually the perfect place for plasma. And so they believe that there are clouds of plasma at 60-degree angles from the moon, kind of like the two dragons.
Right. This is accounted for in Vedic astrology that they would be invisible mass bodies. So there is a mass detectable or theoretical or mathematical. So I agree with you. I think that, but I also think it's accounted for in classical astrology. I think it's one-to-one personally. Like when he's talking about it, when you're referring to it, it sounds very similar to me to the more tantric astrological layer.
Right. Well, it brings up to me, what if this is the origin of consciousness on the planet Earth? Is like these two nodes and the way that the moon is shaped in basically shaping our consciousness from those different, nodes of consciousness that are hanging out there the whole time we've had a moon.
Well, the dragon's not God, though.
Well, right, but there's some element that I believe is being exchanged between these two
Well,
areas.
just look at the pole on the ocean, right? Like with the moon, the lunar pole. Like,
right,
it's obviously drawing, or
And
it
the-
wouldn't.
It's an oscillation.
And the
So
moon
that-
has a cool light instead of a hot one too. So there's something happening energetically there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it seems things down here certainly seem to be affected by things up there. However, we want to define
Mhm.
them. I mean, whether we're talking planets or not. I mean, the alchemists certainly
Birth.
believed in planets.
Birth, plants, mood, all kinds of things circle around it.
Yeah, you don't want
Really?
to, I'm a little bit of a stubborn guy. I didn't want to admit astrology was a real thing, but it is. It's simply geometry. And crystals are, those are real things too. They do have certain effects to them. Phase conjugate crystals are a real thing. I was gifted one, and it's a kaleidoscope. It's a natural kaleidoscope. It has almost complete internal reflection, meaning you look inside of it and you see the crystal lattice itself. It's a strange object. It's a phase conjugate crystal, and it's always cool. It's a little bit colder than room temperature usually, but yeah, astrology is a real thing. A real thing would be geometry, right? Like, we're just measuring triangles constantly. It's always Pythagoras theorem pretty much all the way down. So yeah, crystals, all that stuff is real.
Yeah.
Well, John Dee over and over says the language of God is math. Period. So.
Well, that's interesting, Heidi, because I was going to ask Chief, why does he not believe in a pure mathematical construct?
Me?
If he believes in a cavitation, yeah.
Well, it's not to say that I don't. I really like. So the mathematical construct, I believe, that describes reality is my buddy Colby's thing. And like I said, I'm sorry I won't post it here because it's a preprint, but it's a separation constant of like 8 variables that when you constantly measure gets you down past the quantum scale. I know it seems like that idea would be like done already, but it's just not. It's not engineered. It's called quantum quackery because it's all made up stuff based on other people's names and not actually physical science. Like we don't do a whole lot of experiments anymore, partially because stuff like the LIGO and CERN get built and show nothing, and then they got to show proof that they're showing nothing, but they got to make it look like it's something. So it just winds up being worse and worse and worse. But to say that I don't believe in a purely mathematical construct of reality, that's not necessarily true. I mean, I believe it's pretty much holographic. Like everything you could do in a holographic universe, I believe is what we could do in this universe. I believe in teleportation faster than light. I don't believe the speed of light is a limit. I believe
I
you can straight up
100% believe they
believe-
figured that out with like around Howard Hughes' time. Not saying he was the only one with it, but he definitely was using it 100%.
Oh yeah. I mean, this ether technology book is written by Rolf Schafrank, Operation Paperclip scientist, one of the youngest, if not the youngest. And he was buddies with Tom Bearden, but they worked in Huntsville, Alabama at NASA. So, I mean, and then I don't have too much of Stan Deyo in here, but I had the opportunity to get in the X space with Stan Deyo, and he was a guy that worked with Edwin Teller, the creator of the nuclear bomb. And Stan Deyo goes, you know, the Teller group had a craft, and they took off from Nevada, overshot Texas, and landed in Florida. So what Stan Deyo's saying there when he says that is that the guy that made a nuclear bomb on planet Earth also made a UFO craft with his group. That's what Stan Deyo's saying. I have no reason not to believe Stan Deyo. He seems like a legit human, and he's one of those guys that you don't hear about, but you probably should, because he's a wealth of information. He's one of the guys that believes he's found Atlantis, but he's also done a whole bunch of other crazy stuff, had a really cool life. Stan Deyo's awesome. He's got patents for free energy, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, Renaissance man.
Hopefully they're not shooting at him like they were at Murray.
Well, he's got stories. Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Chief, I think that some people on this planet have figured out anti-gravity and have actually put it to use. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's hard to prove, man. And but I like what you're saying. You know, you're talking about this young paperclip kid, right? Rolf Chinfrank. I've got to look more into him. But if you look into the Nazis and guys Richter, or even Rolf Weiderow, who helped start CERN, he was working for the Nazis during the war. Then after the war, he went and started CERN. If you start looking into what these guys were really into in the books they were reading, they were into this anti-gravity thing for sure. And T. Townsend Brown, right? Like, I don't know what you heard, but I heard he was in Canada, and Canada wasn't really treating him right. So he went to work for the Nazis for a little bit, and then they sent him back to Canada.
Yeah, let's not forget about the Die Kluck, the Nazi bell. When you said Nazis, yeah, that's what popped up into my head, was that Nazi bell.
Yep. They had.
We have our own. Oh, I apologize.
Well, I was just going to say, you spoke of Victor Schauberger earlier. He was the Nazi scientist that came up with the implosion drive that made submarines fly. I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. There's a whole lot I didn't know. There's a whole lot I learned. The Nazis figured out gravity. They won World War II by figuring out gravity. All the conspiracy theories, quote unquote, are probably real. I haven't looked into them too much. I know people say they're in Antarctica, they're in Chile, Argentina, wherever. There's all kinds of reports. I've got a book called Dark Stars, story of the Dark Fleet that apparently took off into the solar system. Yeah, there's a lot to say there. But whatever, yes, we've had the ability to get off the planet for a long time. Whoever figured it out got a hold of the scientists, and then gate kept it, literally conquered the world, and have a grasp to it still, and won't let it out. What I'm trying to say is, whatever we have today is worse than Nazis. So,
yeah, well, they were dispersed. You know, like Russia. We don't know what Russia was able to tap into. If you look at Manfred von Ardeen, he was a Nazi scientist that the Russians got. He helped them develop, you know, a toroidal field stuff and like nuclear fusion. And then if you go look at Juan Perón, who was down in Argentina, they got Richter. And we had to send guys down to check on Richter because he was doing Argentinian press conferences and talking about anti-gravity and free energy and stuff. So the Air Force went down there to check on him. And he was like, yeah, I figured out anti-gravity he said, I figured out zero point energy in 1936 for the Nazis. And then all that stuff got dispersed.
Yeah. I haven't heard of that story, but I'd love to hear more. That's a good one. There's a lot of them out there. The whole Philadelphia experiment, 100% real.
Which is why, you know, I postulate with Howard Hughes, he didn't come back exactly the same, because I think he jumped too many times, just like we see with that experiment. It was too big, and we know there was some really horrible things that happened to the people there. So, you know,
I would not trust
body parts. And,
I wouldn't trust 1950s UFOs or teleportation. I'll say that much.
No way.
They did figure it out. There's a lot of evidence that points to it. It's just we went down the Einstein rabbit hole, and there's a whole quantum field theory that starts kind of in Einstein's time and then is perpetuated that is contradictory to the ether. They say quantum vacuum fluctuations instead of ether. They are the same thing. They've completely uprooted language and science and literally turned the tables on humanity. This cannot be understated.
Exactly.
So electrodynamics are a quantum mirror. Quantum mechanics are fractals of electrodynamics in nature. The ether is ignored yet proven. For centuries, the ether was the universal medium. Consider the substance through which light, electromagnetic waves, and possibly all forces are propagated. Yada, yada, yada. Einstein's framework overemphasized mass as a static quantity, ignoring its dynamic oscillatory nature, its pulse nature. You have a pulse to you. As implied by quantum wave particle duality. It's an oxymoron. This shouldn't exist. Therefore, needing an ever-increasing amount of variables to align with experiment, quantum quackery simply attempts to fit unexpected observations. You see this today, like James Webb Space Telescope is still finding stuff that are new and unexpected, whereas the electric universe is sitting here like, we expected this. This here is the Sapphire experiment from the electric universe's creators, Wallace Thornhill, Anthony Peratt, who worked at Area 51 on the largest electromagnetic machine on the planet, the Z-Pinch machine pictured here. Anthony Peratt worked at Area 51. They made this experiment called the Sapphire Project, where they attempted to create a miniature sun. And they were successful. But it was by a private company, private partner, private something or another, and nobody knows what really happened here other than it worked, and they showed it. This is a star. This is a Birkeland current. These are the dark matter currents that flow throughout the universe. You can see they're in helical fashion and pinch on themselves. This will come in handy in all of your natural understanding. Helical patterns and crossovers. So Einstein's kind of BS. Nikola Tesla, the man responsible for modern amenities, was giving lectures 130 years ago and used the ether to his engineering desires. I love this quote here. Yeah, this one's better. Every living being is an engine geared to the wheelwork of the universe, though seemingly affected only by its immediate surrounding. The sphere of external influence extends to infinite distance. I would change this to everything. So the book Ether Tech, published in 1977, not a good thing for followers of general relativity, but rho sigma, it, like I was saying earlier, can translate to a few different things, and these are other excerpts from the book. It's often used to, rho is often used to denote density in physics, and sigma can represent standard deviation. So density deviation, or density beyond standard deviation, or whatever. You know, it's interesting. Bob Greenyer also said it, rho sigma can mean chiral or something like that. But yeah, like I said, you look this up, you're not going to find too many good explanations for what it means. At least I haven't.
Did he cover that when he did the lecture with Ashton? Did he
No, I actually asked him about this personally. I got the opportunity to hang out with him for hours at the
Yo, he was a cool dude, man. I actually really.
Oh my God.
Bob was awesome.
I just found him either the beginning of this year or a little bit before then, and yeah, he's amazing. He's another guy. I started to think like, so I'm coming up on all of this creationism per se, and I didn't know what to call it. I'm like, this physics seems to like explain how things work, like from the bottom up. What? And then all of a sudden it hit me. It's like, boom, it's creationism. And I'm like, oh, there it is. I've got the download. And then next thing you know, I hear Bob Greenyer say that word, creationism. And I'm like, oh, man. It's another synchronicity that's just wild. But
so was Einstein a psyop along with some of these other people who shifted the narrative like Marx or Darwin?
It's Yeah, probably. I'm not going to mince words about it. I'm not for certain. There's a lot of things about Einstein that are extremely off and not at all what we learned about him. So why
He
wouldn't I think that
plagiarized
about other people?
he
Yeah.
plagiarized E equals MC squared, and that's been proven for a long time. So I mean, his whole life could be a sham.
Yeah, and he married his cousin and divorced from her. Or
Well,
something
they
like
all
that.
do that.
Hey, good point.
Yeah. I want to ask you real quick, if you don't mind, sir. We have a fellow reject that couldn't make it onto the show today. They just got home from being out in the field themselves, and the last thing they wanted to do was jump on a podcast. But could the guest speak on parity, if I'm saying that correctly, mirror in electrodynamics, as well as weak forces or electroweak force, the left-handed universe, and its involvement in the Manhattan Project? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that. For one, mirrors are representatives of source, but source is representative of a mirror itself. So it's a duality in and of itself, and that kind of speaks to what the yin yang is in some aspects. Mirrors are used to do a lot of crazy cool things with lasers, and lasers are actually the only man-made thing in the universe. Like there's no other thing that can make a beam of light like humans can, but that's not so much on topic. What was the second thing before Manhattan Project?
Like portals too, though, right?
Yeah,
Mirrors.
100%. The Stargate is a documentary. I'm not even joking. I talked to the man who was modeled for Daniel Jackson on the show, and I'd never watched Stargate before, so I just started watching it like a month ago. And yeah, that's nuts to me. That's like it's a dream, honestly. I still don't understand all the crazy stuff that's happened, but the second part was the weak force. Yeah, the electrostatic weak force is kind of like, how I think about it is in relation not at all to strong or weak forces. It's in relation to the permittivity and permeability, and what that represents is the amount of, so permeability is the magnetic reluctance of a material, right? It's what it takes to push a magnetic boundary through this material. That's permeability. Permittivity is the electric displacement field, or the weak force per se, and that's encompasses the weak force and strong force in an electrodynamic fashion. It's more so about the polarization of the atom, and I don't really see how polarization works in anything to do with strong and weak forces. Like it's just it's a charge thing. It's not a strong or weak thing, but I don't know. And then the last thing, the Manhattan Project is a rabbit hole in and of itself, because like I said, the guy that made a nuke supposedly made a UFO too. And if that's the case, I mean, our timeline is warped, to say the least. So,
well, it might be the same type of technology source at the end of the day. It's like that thing with the toroidal field. They were able to use that for anti-gravity because it's I don't know, they were able to use it for anti-gravity, and they were able to use it for like nuclear fusion.
Right here, that was the next.
Oh, okay.
So I've got
I hear you.
this slide and then one more: the mechanism for growth, free energy creation, anti-gravity, whatever, teleportation. It's all the same. The energy problem is the key, and when understood, the universe becomes a human sandbox. Darwinism is wrong, because I was saying earlier, like how the sun and the planets can literally align to create electric discharges between the two bodies and then fry one or another. And, you know, it's an electrodynamic phenomena. Everything is. So planets can zap each other. Darwinism is wrong, meaning planets go through very catastrophic cycles and then very peaceful cycles. And in an electrodynamic sense of the universe, in an electric universe fashion, Darwinism is wrong, because things happen catastrophically and things arise spontaneously, in the sense that conjunction happens. Like I said earlier, the Earth is a boiling point for life. Life will spontaneously erupt here, not in the sense of literally like all of a sudden all mammals arise, but it's like slowly over time there will be effect where species spread out and then coagulate and intermix. And I guess I should say Darwinism is basically wrong, but it's not completely wrong, because things do happen over time, but it's a much more catastrophic and sequential thing than just random selection based or sex selection based characteristics. Like that's just not the case. Like everything is trying to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
could we go back to that for just 1 second, because you've got the display here of the electric field. I just want to say, like, I think that this is a very real thing, and I think it interacts with plants, and that there's a notion that ancient people were taking baskets of seeds up to the top of mounds at sunrise. And as the sun comes up, those seeds get a blast of this electric field energy.
Yep.
It's on the mounds, so you're already on like a mystical fault line, concentrated energy location already. But the thought is that those seeds would go on to manifest high yield gardens.
Yep.
But it all goes back to the electric field, man.
Right here, exactly what you're saying. Ebner effect. They call it, like I said, I kind of hate it when they call it people's names because you don't know what it is. But the Ebner effect, if you look it up, is a static electric field surrounding plants, fish, eggs, and other biological organisms. And when you charge these seeds up, these eggs up, whatever, they revert to a more primordial state. So in his effect, he had like a big static field and wasn't really messing with frequencies or stuff like that. But you could certainly do that. And what the ancients did was exactly what you said. They knew that by having a four-wave mixing on all dimensions, meaning up, down, left, right, back, forward, all kinds of, in complete bubble fashion, you've got all dimensions lining up for light, energy, frequencies, sound, all the stuff at sunrise happens. That's called Agnihotra, I guess. And the ancients 100% engineered that stuff. That's what the monuments around Earth speak to. Human monuments to creation. All religions are correct in some aspects.
I have a quick question for you, Chief. How would you feel about the traditional attribution of Aether to be mind?
Yes, that's 100% real. It's just, you got to explain it a little bit more in depth. It's like your pulse has source potential. Your pulse is literally tapped into the universe. You are resonating with the universe at the base level, at the Planck scale, per se. And your mind is tuned to source because the source of creation is literally in our face. It's what we look like. Our eyes, our nose. These are wave dynamic functional mechanisms. Your eyes point to the point of matter. There's yeah, I'll hold off on that part, but there's a lot to say, because yes, you are literally tapped in psychoanalysis, or not psychoanalysis, psychokinesis, teleportation, hovering, levitation, all that stuff's real. Remote viewing's real. Like, you could straight up be a Jedi. Most of our movies and stuff put this in our face. All elitist symbology uses this technology, uses this as a reference for their designs. Like, a unified field of physics would, let me know if you guys agree with me on this, would combine biology, all mechanisms that we make, like all computers, all engines, all that stuff, and all religions and all ancient structures into a function, right? Like, that's what a unified field theory of physics should do. It should explain basically everything.
Yeah.
Tornadoes do that. And yeah, just to prove the ether thing, like you were asking, I got this right here. Can you guys see this video?
No.
It hasn't popped up yet.
Oh, it might take a second here.
Yeah, I don't know if that stuff will pop up on the screen if you're doing it from there. I'm not sure.
Oh, I got a screen. Let me screen share this one because it's worth it. It's the top link there. So I'm going to present here.
And this is Bob Greener?
This one's not Bob Greener. This one is the first link on that thing.
Yeah, that had his name on it.
This one's the extended Michelson-Morley experiment. So the Michelson-Morley experiment was a wave interferometer that spun just like this on its horizontal parallel axis to the Earth, and it found no interference, meaning the waves didn't move at all. You'll see that right here.
Nicely view the interference fringes during this rotation.
No interference pattern. The lines look the same, even though it's rotating. If we go a little bit further ahead, he swaps it vertically.
Just as in the previous experiment, until we are able to see a clear and good visible interference pattern.
Oh, he's not moving it right now.
The rotating to the entire interferometer in
there we go. Now you'll see it.
Rotational movement, and are watching the projected interference pattern on the screen. You are now able to clearly see a movement of the interference fringe pattern.
You are now clearly able to see a movement of the interference pattern. So what's going on here is when the light is deflected on a radial axis, nothing happens. It's being deflected, it's being split, but when you spin it, nothing is being changed. It's pretty much static in its field. So even though it's spinning in its field, its little spot it's created, there's not much going on. When he switches it upright, this happens. Interference. Something is interfering with the beam, with the wave pattern on it. And, you know, it's ether, but it can go by many different names, right? It can go by the quantum vacuum field fluctuations are penetrating this. The capacitively coupled electrons surrounding the beams are, acting in accordance to Earth's gravitational field, whatever. There's a lot of different mechanisms, but nobody engineers the mechanism because they think the Michelson-Morley experiment was bunk. They think that just rotating it on a radial axis parallel to the Earth is disevidence of the ether. It proves that there was no medium. But they don't know that you rotate it vertically and it proves there's an ether. Like, it's so simple. It's right here. You can watch it for yourself. It's moving back and forth. Something's disturbing the light-bearing medium, the light-propagating medium, or the light-propagating source. Either way, it's an etheric effect because nothing happened when they put it on a radial axis, whatever. So let me stop screen sharing that.
Hey, while you're doing that, it's so funny because Tara Jackson said Nas used ether to destroy Jay-Z, and that's actually pretty funny because that's a good song.
Yeah, well, the rap game is kind of like quantum physics. They're both kind of built on a psyop, but yeah.
not for nothing though. Nas do talk about UFOs and stuff though in his songs a lot, so it's pretty interesting that Tara Jackson actually brought that up because he has a couple of rap songs out there that actually talks about UFOs and him experiencing these UFOs or orbs or whatever you want to call them.
Oh wow. Well, yeah, not for nothing. You're right. Yeah, I like him. He's got a couple songs I like. I couldn't name them right now.
I think Nas is a magician, and he was able to kind of be a hyperspace traveler like Howard Hughes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can, like I said, you are literally tapped into the universe. That's what your pulse is doing. It's literally sitting there compressing a hydrogen molecule. It's that cavitation effect. You're tapped in, bro. Your heartbeat is showing it.
And if you start writing, if you're in one of those states of consciousness and you pull out a piece of paper and you just start automatic writing, I mean, some of the lyrics that you're going to produce aren't necessarily coming from you.
100%. And this Bob Greener video here, it's about the ether. It kind of explains it. It's not as professional. I took it at the Cosmic Summit, but you can really do everything that magic basically tells you you can do. Like all the Jedi mind tricks, those are real. You can literally coerce people if you're really good at it. You know, that's not like a crazy thing, but in a sense it is, because your voice is a very powerful tool. The words you say, the things you think. We're kind of led astray on purpose, right? The thing I was going to say is, you're talking about states of consciousness and writing. Bob Greenier put it perfectly. He goes, when you're really tired, you short circuit the pathway to source in your brain. Your brain's sitting there kind of rewiring itself because it is tired. So in that sense, you're going to tap yourself in a little bit more. That's why a lot of people say they write better when they're tired and things come to them and they have ideas and inspiration and all that stuff, because there's a short circuit to source if you stay up a long time. Like nobody really knows why you die if you stay awake forever, but there's probably a good explanation in an electrodynamic sense there. Like you could probably measure it and attribute it to some kind of lack
You could
of...
definitely measure it on an EEG, 100%.
Yeah. So just to sum up why the electricity and electron topic is so important. The coupling between inertia and gravity is in electron dynamics. Electrons and their bundling are reflections of source, or reflectivitons of source. That's the mirror we were talking about. The origin of mass and inertia lies in such science, electron bundling in a vacuum. The mechanism for growth, we already went over that one. All free energy machines will be said to violate the second law of thermodynamics, or Einstein's mass energy equivalence. Second law of thermodynamics states that all systems must spontaneously evolve towards higher states of entropy. But that ignores simple growth. Plants and creatures of all kind, literally the universe's use mechanisms, are not inherently entropic. We see creation. Things aren't just going extinct. And these are... this is the Ebner effect right here, actually. He used it on this, I believe, and it brought it back to a more... Used it on this, brought it back to this. And then good book here. And I think we're going to get into the free energy topic here now. More so. So the free energy technology is ways of generating over unity, aka you put some power in, you get more power than you need out. And there's actually a lot of ways to do it, as I've come to understand. It's just simply a pouring effect of electricity, like waterfalls stemming from the ocean. The science of implosion and vacuum engineering resonate as high bid contenders for circuitry to over-enhance the circulation of electrons. So in all currents that use electricity, we sit there and we circulate electrons from the positive to the negative, or from the negative to positive, depending on what conventional type of thinking you look at it. Everything's kind of backwards. But in all circuits, we're flowing electrons in some fashion. The problem is we sit there and throw them all away on one end. As Tom Bearden says, what we're paying the electricity company to do is have a wrestling match in their generators and then give us the television show. Whereas we should just be able to create electricity on demand. This, the way that we create electricity and use it now is always gate kept, because we ground things out. You know, nobody asks, where does electricity go when you ground it? Well, there's a couple different answers. One is in the ambient air, if you're not grounded to the earth itself. If you're grounded to the earth itself, it goes into the earth, or it comes from the earth. And you can also put it into things, as it turns out. So that's called cold electricity. And there's a lot of stuff that you can make to have over unity machines. Like there's magnetic motors, there's plasma balls you can create, there's electrolysis systems, there's actually antennas that just pick up the signal and then put it into power. Like there's super efficient ways to make solar panels. Instead of having like 18% efficiency like they normally do, you can have them make over unity energy. You could have more energy than you need from your house. There's all kinds of ways to engineer the way that electrons circulate.
In Appalachia, people had wood stoves, and
yeah,
you could, what I'm told is that you could burn whatever you want to burn in there, just burn something, run that heat into a turbine, and then you can create energy for your house or electricity even just off of a wood stove.
So this is, let me back up in my life experience just a little bit. About 3 years ago, I ended up making a gasifier, which is a wood stove that actually burns not 100% efficiently. So in the burn chamber, it's got coals, wood, all kinds of stuff, whatever you want to burn. And then above that is a hopper of wood pellets and other stuff that's full of hydrocarbons. And when you light this furnace, it pulls the hydrocarbons from the wood, makes quote unquote wood gas, and you can straight up burn that in every single engine on the planet. And it was used in World War II. Apparently gasifiers were a big thing. And there's still a lot of technology surrounding gasifiers for like industrial burners and like crematoriums, oddly enough. But yeah, I mean, when we think about it, all protons have electrons. All electricity is electrons and the lining up of electrons. The lightning you see in the sky is the reordering of the planet per se. Like the electron bundles are needing to be redistributed or realigned. And what this is showing here is kind of the lowest state as we measure for protons and electrons. This is the quantum vacuum field fluctuation. You see, as we approach absolute zero, we still get a little bit of a peak, aka 0 point energy, non-zero energy in the vacuum state. There's still something. What this speaks to is, again, vacuum engineering and implosion.
Right. Could you comment a little bit on Planck's length? Because I think understanding the scale of Planck's length when it comes to things our size kind of shows you where all that energy is really coming from.
Well, it's very odd because the people that are in power put it out publicly for you to visualize. You may have seen like some of the Avengers stuff after Endgame, like the quantum verse and all that, or Ant-Man. It's basically that. Like Planck length is what the universe is on the macro scale down to the smallest scale. It's on both scales. So you go from the universe at the largest scale, from like the furthest galaxy we can see to the next furthest galaxy we can see. And then you compress that down into like the smallest point possible. So it's kind of both. And this is kind of that picture right there, because you know, we live in 3 dimensions and there are only 3 dimensions, but there's a universal wave function. That's the neutrinoverse. That's the ether. Everything is moving and it's all moving together and there's no stopping it. That wave function is the universe, and that's the Planck length per se.
Well,
I believe I got that right. Sorry.
I was going to comment that as you scale Planck's length up in terms of like by a 1 inch by 1 inch thing, then the background radiation of the universe that's everywhere at all times becomes so super dense, it's like a black hole. So that's a lot of energy potential at this super tiny scale. And if you could harvest that at scale to where we're at now, you're talking about taking energy that would be, you know, beyond anything imaginable just from the void itself.
Right here is the cosmos. Yeah. This is a 0 point. This is a black hole. This is an implosion. This is a tornado. This is on all scales. This is efficiency defined on all scales. This is scale invariance throughout the universe. It's a lot of things. The qubits, the bytes, the ones and zeros, the code of the universe runs on a dynamic fashion of this thing. Whatever this torus is, whatever name it goes by, whatever God called it, whatever math represents it, is used throughout the universe. It's the one thing we always see, no matter how hard we look, on the lowest scale and the biggest scale. Here's some books. I made a little highlight reel. If you want to watch it pretty quick, I think it's pretty good. The gist of it is these guys all speak to creation. And it's just kind of a highlight to show how many people stumble upon this. A lot of people come from it from different sides. Like Stanley Meyer came at it from the water fuel angle and figured out that hydrogen is a universal energy aperture. And then guys like Tom Vallone was a patent clerk who would grant patents to people, and he was more open-minded, so he started doing it for free energy stuff. And there's all kinds of people that stumble upon this. That's what you find out when you really get into the weed of electrodynamic science. Or
what about Paul Hill? Do you know about Paul Hill?
I don't know of Paul Hill. I know of Paul Brown.
Okay. Yeah, he wrote an unconventional flying objects book, but he had equations for interstellar time travel. And it talks about like the mathematics of how electromagnetic engines could work and all that. He was in and out of the doors at NASA as well. And I think that what I gathered is that you don't know much about Paul Hill because of NASA. Like,
yeah.
No,
yep.
We're not. This guy's work is staying underground.
I got another guy I'll tell you about. So remind me of Paul Hill, because it's the same case where he worked at NASA and then didn't release anything until after he died, because he knew of what they would stop him from releasing. So that's why he waited till he died. But yeah, if you guys want to watch this, that's cool. It says 11 minutes, but it goes by pretty quick. So I'll just go ahead. You guys can hear this too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Turn it up some. I think it's a little low though.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, there we go. There we go.
The more possible, I say possible, declassification is, because it all is based on how much you know. And if you know enough about a classified project, it's very likely that you can push it out into a declassified area.
We say, what is the speed of light? Well, to an engineer, it's C equals 1 over the square root of mu 0 epsilon 0, the permittivity and permeability of the vacuum. So if you can do any engineering to reduce mu 0 and epsilon 0, then 1 over the square root of mu 0 epsilon 0 gets to be a very high number. And so actually aiming in that direction is what can get you beyond the speed of light. You're actually not beyond the speed of light. It's just you re-engineered the speed of light. So, I mean, those are areas that are worth chasing if you can figure out engineering ways of getting from here to there. So those are like ideas on the table, but we haven't done any work in the lab on that.
Experiments have been done. I've certainly participated in making some of these coils myself with toroidal coils to try to open up a gateway between our energy density, our universe, and a parallel universe. In fact, there's evidence of at least 6 others, where you make a gateway between us and a parallel world, like you'd open up an energy well, if you wish, into an upper energy density level or to a lower energy density level.
Why? Because do you consume a voltage field in an electronic circuit? No. Voltage performs a physical process of opposite electrical attraction.
And as you adjust the pulse frequency and you're tuning into the dielectric properties of water, amp flow goes down to a minimum and voltage tries to take off towards infinity if the electronic components will allow it to happen.
That knows nonlinear oscillation theory, and also we have to have another one that knows nonlinear oscillation control theory. Those are specializations. You don't
four
or above.
Or above.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's just like they told Bruce De Palma. If it would have been over unity, we would have just locked up the whole lab. So it has to be at this level.
But De Palma, of course, has been wondering why it's so difficult to get something which is basically so simple into the public eye and get it into the universities.
No, everything is about survival, really, and of course, people take it way too far, and then things.
Well, that's a very good point, because Velikovsky, in his last work, Mankind in Amnesia, dealt with a problem, a human problem, that I've come to believe is the most important thing that I can let people know about. And that is that mankind suffered through doomsday and survived.
Let's look at how ZAP energy creates Z-pinch fusion within an experimental core. First, a puff of gas is injected into a vacuum chamber. As the gas expands, an intense pulse of power ionizes the gas into a plasma. Its currents and magnetic fields cause it to accelerate down the chamber. As it comes past the inner nose cone, the plasma collapses into a thin column. The Z-pinch magnetic field powerfully compresses the plasma for a few fractions of a second, producing extreme temperatures and densities. As this happens, a wave of fusion reactions produces highly energized particles, which can be harvested to make heat and electricity. Soon after the pinch disappears, the cycle will begin again.
I mean, I'm just saying we could power the world here, folks. That's not, okay, not a big deal.
You guys are speaking my language, so to speak. You're preaching to the choir with respects to what I've been told. Dare I say, it could be, nonsense, but what I've been told off the record by some American officials as, what has been deemed as national security information is what you're seemingly describing publicly. So I want to thank you so very much, Ms. Donovan, for even joining this call today. Now,
basically, the idea is displacement current will support a self-loop system.
Based on implosion rather than, right? The whole idea of creation, again, a physics based on creation rather than destruction.
So the charge implosion here is measured. The access to the power output is from the centripetal point here to the centrifugal point here, and you can guess which is which polarity, okay? Centripetal, centrifugal, hint, hint.
This is a picture of the Berkeley current filaments that flow between galaxies in deep space. They're in what's called dark mode, so that you can't actually see them, but the radio astronomers can pick them up with their radio telescopes. Tony Pratt, who worked at the Los Alamos labs, had access to information that no one else did. And that was the form of plasma instabilities when you create the most powerful electrical discharges that man can do on Earth. And when you do that, you get the kind of forms like that one seen in purple on the right.
The armature in this spinning craft is merely delivering a high voltage to a concave surface, which is the Searle principle, and that delivers a longitudinal component. This, which is a gravity wave.
The idea is that you can exchange the internal mass of an object with the local environment or the local space-time itself. So the notion that energy cannot be created or destroyed would be correct. You're just basically cycling that energy in and out from the object because of spin coupled to an electromagnetic induction field combined with something else that I'll tell you off the air that would allegedly prove this to, or show at least proof of concept that there would be mass reduction.
If you're a human being and you can gain access to this technology, you're right up there with the government. And that's just simply how it is. Now, I want to take a look at something called the electric universe theory.
In fact, that Josephson junction capacitance is more able to pick up the longitudinal component. That's the mechanism.
That's insane. That's literally how put-offs work too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. It's a long story. Yes. Yeah, Hal was working with Dave, and a little bit too much military there, I think. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like I've entered like an episode of Star Wars or something like that at this point. There's so many terms flying around here.
And like you said, gravity, once we understand that, it does seem like you can engineer everything in reality, from stargates to cyborgs to whatever you want. It just depends on whatever you want, which, yeah, thank you.
Some Star Wars stuff right there.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I would just recommend have a look at my essay from this morning. It maybe may connect to what you just talked.
And then I'm sorry, I was going to mention implosion science as the key to gravity.
Okay, thank you. Any
All
other
right.
questions before I need
The three-dimensional concept. So I think a lot of people just don't get it.
Yep.
But it's a whirlpool that goes all the way to the Planck. And then these transverse waves, because they can only fit through an aperture at the Planck distance, they get squirted into a longitudinal wave.
Exactly. That's right. And then they can go superluminal and they can embed in the array. That's exactly what we're saying.
And so
we know
We can prove that's exactly the way hydrogen's built for sure. We have the equations. And then we can prove that's the way DNA is built for sure. And then we can prove that's the way the stack of platonics called electron shells and nuclear hadrons is literally only a platonic nest. So we can prove that's how the atomic table is built, precisely because the platonic nest is the golden ratio dodec. So everything we have that becomes self-organizing, called origin of negentropy, uses that physics called PlanckFire.com. And
this is creation. This is transmutation. It's decreation. It's anti-gravity. It's faster than light communication. It's faster than light traveling. It's teleportation. Yeah, we're going to get to that. It's unlimited energy at any point in the universe. It's the God's toolbox with a little g in quotes.
Living here in America, even recycling is fake. So to hear that is just absolutely mind-blowing.
It's simple physics, man.
Yeah. So that's that.
That did go by pretty fast. I didn't feel, I was like, man, when is it going to keep going? I thought it was going to keep going for a while. That was interesting. I actually took a lot of notes while it was going on, man.
There's a lot here. So to speak to the pulse thing, right? Sometime this year, I found this. It was at the beginning of the year, January, February, whatever. Maybe even before then, maybe December sometime of 2024. Either way, what this is the Z-pinch fusion from Zap Energy. What they are is a DARPA project. So this is our own government hiding unlimited energy in the form of massive DARPA projects using plasma. This Z-pinch is that pulse that I originally wanted to know about. Why does, when you pulse something, like they ionize the gas and it's a pulse of electricity that travels down in a toroid and collapses. Why is that pulse so effective? Because when it compresses in a Z-pinch and in a lightning bolt, there is a release of electrons. The things collide so fast that they disperse. You'll see that
Each
right
magnetic
here.
field powerfully compresses the plasma for a few fractions of a second, producing extreme temperatures and densities. As this happens, a wave of fusion reactions produces highly energized particles, which can...
So the machine's not even on and this is happening. You can think of this as a light bulb. You could have a tabletop light bulb reactor that gives you infinite energy. You could turn the flashlight on your phone to charge it. You could turn it on to charge it. You could turn your lights on in your house to have infinite energy. What this is that, except for this is a massive DARPA project.
Chief, I think you might find this interesting, and it goes back to the Nazi scientist Richter I told you about earlier. I pulled the story up while this was playing, and basically what happened there was they announced, Richter did a press conference with Argentina. They announced that they figured out the hydrogen bomb before the U.S. did. So the Air Force had guys go down there and talk with him, and what he said to them was, I figured out how to put plasma in a toroidal field, pressurize it, and hit it with tons of electricity. The plasma then stores up its own energy reserves. And he goes, he followed all that up by saying, I figured all this out in 1936 in Nazi Germany, and we called it 0-point energy.
Yeah, that's the nail on the head. Like Bob Greenyer says, you get anti-gravity, fusion, teleportation. You get all of it when you figure out what this is doing.
And it's 2025, and now it's, DARPA doing the same thing and just not telling anybody about it. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Let me look. It's worth it. Z-pinch fusion. I'm just going to share my screen to this. It's got 19,000 views. Probably all of those are from me posting about it on X. Yeah, I'm just going to show you how public this is because there's nothing not public about this. Z-pinch fusion. You look it up on YouTube. It's right here. That's the video we just watched from Zap Energy. You go to Zap Energy. Fusion power, no magnets required. All kinds of stuff. This is a DARPA project. And it's right in your face. Ultra public. No hide. No secrecy. You take the diaphragm, or you put another, how do I say this? You put a diaphragm on the end of this pulse here, and you can have teleport, or you can have anti-gravity too. Frank Mead, I don't know if I put his device in my presentation here. He's the guy that basically gave the checks to Hal Puthoff, Frank Mead. He comes up with plasma propulsion, which is basically this device with a diaphragm on the end of it. So there is no secrets. And it's literally as simple as looking it up on YouTube. This thing right here, like I said, could be on your tabletop as a fusion reactor. They're making a massive nuclear facility for this one device. And they're going to make it a big device, so it is going to generate a lot of electricity. But it won't be your electricity. You'll be buying it. So that's that. And then I'll share it back to the presentation here. Frank Mead of Church's Chicken. Exactly. Hey, William, what's up, brother? He was at the
yeah. It was a cool dude, man.
Summit.
I'd be cracking up. Yeah, I was gonna get him on the show too. I think at the end of something like that.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
The one time I popped back to the StreamYard. That's funny. So yeah, here's Tom Bearden. He's got a whole DVD series on energy from the vacuum. So we can just think of the vacuum as energy. All energy comes from the vacuum. The vacuum spins itself up into matter. The vacuum is a superfluid, meaning if you're in space, just like the Titan submarine imploding underneath the ocean, you know, when that guy, the millionaire, had that rigged thing to go look at the Titanic. When it implodes, it is instantly filled. Not necessarily everything's instantly evacuated. It's instantly filled. So the vacuum of space will instantly fill your craft if it has a leak. And that's the energy from the vacuum. There's like 40, sometimes 3-hour episodes that they put on DVD. This was like, I mean, you can tell it was from a while ago. That's John Bedini. He had a free energy motor. That's what this is right here. The magic of this is the inductive kickback you get from one of these magnets passing a copper coil that's right where this mouse is. A magnet on the wheel here will pass a copper coil, induce a voltage in it, and then pull that voltage along with it, and it will collapse, just like the Z-pinch fusion machine we were looking at.
You know what's really weird about that? Sorry to interrupt you. Is that I had covered recently Robert Flood. He had some sort of invention that had like a wheel and then like some copper twisted thing, and he had this theory about how it was supposed to like pull water up and then like pour it back down. It was like this continual energy thing with just recycling the same water. They said it didn't make any sense to see if it was possible, but supposedly he, you know, there's pictures you can find of like his drawing of it, but it sounds very close to this, something like that.
Yeah, it's that. So basically what he's doing right here is getting a pulse modulated device out of this. So this whole thing is a regular motor for the most part. The coil, the magnets, all that stuff is found in regular DC, AC motors throughout the planet. But the magic, the power comes from the circuitry. It's just a simple switching effect going on underneath here. It goes from positive to negative in tune with the wheel, and that experience generates over unity. It's cold electricity too. You'll find that as he talks about his devices in the series here. I've watched all 40 of them, so I can just tell you from watching them that it is all about the pulse method, and that it is cold electricity, meaning you can touch it and it won't hurt you. It doesn't heat up wires. It doesn't short circuit things. It's cold. And I don't have the video. There's a great demonstration of the Searle effect generator on YouTube that shows that as well. If you don't know what the Searle generator is, it's basically a wheel flipped on its side, and there's a bunch of magnets that spin around it, and that generates electricity in the core. Actually, it's an ambient energy generator because it sucks in energy through the core of it and then recirculates it in the toroidal field.
Was Bearden able to levitate objects?
Well, he worked with a guy named, oh my God. Oh, he did magnets. He used magnets to make like trains move around and stuff. Howard Johnson? No. Maybe that's his name. Long story short, yeah, they did an experiment where apparently the guy he was working with, I believe his name is Howard Johnson, had a device that when spun up fast enough generated a gravity field from its own spin and took off. So, yeah.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought I'd heard about that. I don't know if it was a pyramid or not, or was the object in a shape of a pyramid? I'm not sure. I thought maybe I read something about that, but
the magnets were diagonally sliced on the Howard Johnson wheel, but they're not necessary. I mean, they are kind of pyramids. They're like right angle magnets, but they're stuck on a wheel that he spun really fast. That's the gist of it. And, you know, a lot of this stuff is like, wow, you're telling me we just spin an electromagnetic wheel really fast and we get anti-gravity? Yeah, and maybe that's simple because it stems from a lot of, you know, preceding of information in our culture and the stuff we get. And that's because they already have it. Like I was going to say the other thing with that video I put together is Hal Puthoff's literally talking to the grandson of Victor Schauberger and saying, yeah, we can't replicate this technology, with a smirk on his face. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when he says, yeah, we didn't see any lift, you can smell the shit grin, right? Like, you can tell he's lying. And then he says, well, we didn't have enough parts. It's like, okay. So he's just lying about it some way or another, some fashion. And yeah, Schauberger came up with implosion drives. There's a lot of people that figure it out. As you, I guess, just get into it when you start learning about this stuff. Anti-gravity, I go into that a little bit down here some more, but this is all water fuel, thunderstorm generator. I saw one of these run at the Cosmic Summit. That was pretty sweet. There's water fuel from regular water electrolysis, but not necessarily regular because it's modified to be efficient through pulse method and stacked arrays and then photon injection and all that. That's Stanley Meyer. Using radio frequency to create sonoluminescence and pop out electrons from water. That's John Canzius. He lit water on fire through using radio frequencies. That's also kind of a John Hutchinson effect, if you know who John Hutchinson is. But that's John Canzius. He had RF frequency fire from water. Walter P. Jenkins had another one. Robert Boyce had another one. These are just 5 examples of water fuels sources and machines. And this is this is John Canzius right here. This is the Walter P. Jenkins device, I believe, and this is Stanley Meyer stuff. And that's the thunderstorm generator magic right there. Magnetic motors, John Bedini, Howard Johnson. Yep, that's the guy that had the anti-gravity effect that we were just talking about.
Nice.
That's John Bedini. He's the guy in the picture here. He's a little bit older here, but same guy. Searle effect generator. So there's a video on YouTube that they start this thing up and it starts going, and then the middle of it here starts getting really cold. It's because it's sucking out electrons into these outer rings. It's an ambient energy generator. It's going to suck stuff in this way through and around it, and it's going to create its own little warp bubble in space.
Is that something like a black hole?
Yeah. Yep. So there are no black holes. It's only implosions. And implosions are, I didn't get it on here, but they're simply like, black holes are not black holes in the sense that they suck in everything and destroy it. They're simply a point of scintillation. So things will emerge into it and then emerge out of it. And exponential fashion. So you'll get sucked into it super quick and thrown out the other side real fast. There's a beautiful experiment where somebody sets a can up, a regular Coke can, Mountain Dew can, Pepsi can, whatever, on the side of a hill, and they cut the top off. They stick a piece of paper in the side of it so it covers up most of the back half, and then they stick a pinhole through one side so the light emerges through the pinhole, through the black hole, through the implosion. The light from the hillside of the nature will emerge through this pinhole and onto the paper. Now, how does it do that? How does it's a beautiful experiment, and it speaks to the time of photography being invented, but it's so simple because it's simply an implosion point. Like, it's a 0-point energy analog itself. Things enter in and then get thrown out the other side. So there are no black holes that tear everything apart. There are black holes that throw things away, though.
This could get into portals, right?
Stargates.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Cromray converter. This is Joseph Newman's device down here. All kinds of stuff. Oh, the End machine from Bruce De Palma. That's this. It didn't achieve free energy, but what it did was explain science a little bit deeper. So he basically stuck 2 rotating gyroscopes. I think they're gyroscopes. No, what's the name? Homopolar motors. These things that spin a motor one way or another. He stuck 2 of them on a box and then dropped it when it was running and when it was not running. Now, what do you guys think? When it was running, did anything happen? When it wasn't running, did it drop normally? Like, what do you think happened when he ran this double Holer polar motor and then dropped it from a string? Like, it was in the air and then dropped it.
Would it just like hover?
It actually fell faster.
Oh, really? Wow.
So it fell faster to the ground when it was turned on. What this is evidence of is its own inertial field is interacting with the Earth in some sense. It has an inertial field to itself, just based on spin. Now, physics calls this conservation of angular momentum, but it's more dynamic than that because this is a simple machine, and it hit the ground faster. Like, that's like saying I jumped higher just because I had, a protein bar this morning or something like that. Like, that shouldn't really happen, right?
Yeah, right. I like how you put that.
Yeah. So it's a strange effect. And Bruce De Palma, he was kind of murked. He was murked. He was thrown out of the country and then murked. So it's a tragic tale. But
all these guys could get their own episode or series of episodes. But and I'm thinking about John Keeley here too, because one of his devices apparently worked differently when he was in its presence.
Yeah.
Do you let me ask you a quick question. Do you think it was our own that did it, or do you think it was somebody else that didn't want us to have that technology?
That's a good question. And I'll say this, a lot of people talk about that. A lot of people go to the suppression angle, the overarching suppression angle of why we don't have this technology and stuff like that. And I don't want to say I don't care about that, because I do care about that. And the implications are massive one way or another. But at the same time, I'm at the point where I know all the stuff I'm talking to you guys about. And if I were to know what the question you just asked me, I'd kind of be like even more scared for my life. Like, I haven't even built nothing yet, but just talking to you guys is, these are national security secrets here. If you had more energy than you would ever need in any one of these devices, could you imagine the life you could live? You could go to any farmer. You could go to any business and instantly help them. You could go anywhere yourself.
They'll never let it happen. My dad had multiple patents. They shut him down. That other guy had patents. They shut him down. There's too much control in the oligarchy. They're never going to let it go.
The scary thing to know
But
is
I
that
agree.
whoever they are, they eat their own. That's what I would sum that question up as, is they eat their own children.
I agree with that too, and what Heidi said 100%. And that's what that's why I don't get this whole. I don't mean this in a way that like I'm trying to come after anybody, but this whole notion of there are no secrets. I'm not really, I don't know, man. I'm not really, you guys are saying there's no secrets, but yet this stuff is being suppressed. So where's the fine line there?
That's a good question.
Let's ask Uncle John Trump.
Yeah, so Stan Deo even sat down with John Trump. And I didn't get the chance to ask him when he was in the X space there, but there's a whole side to the suppression angle that I don't completely understand. I've for a long time was going down it, like, you know, just inherently, like, why is politics so fake? I don't understand why nothing actually cool gets done or people actually come together. Like, none of this is making sense.
Are you not entertained?
Exactly.
That's all. That's all it is. It's circuses. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably pin it down, and there's probably people that have pinned it down. And I mean, your theory is probably better than mine as to who controls all this information and doesn't let it out. But
every time I think I figure it out, there's 20 more people to research.
yeah, it's another never-ending rabbit hole in and of itself. And at the same time, you know, I just don't want to know. It's like saying, it's like having an overbearing, terrified mother, like the guy that was always fed pills from the movie It, that poor kid. Like, I just don't want to think about that so much. But at the same time, I get exactly what you're feeling, because the fuckery has gone way awry and we are so far out of the plot, it doesn't even make sense. So
well, look at what they've done to every single person that's tried to use it for not like global elite bullshit, like Tesla, like this Mormon guy that's just some random guy, this Murray, like my dad who had multiple patents that got shut down over and over and over again. Like, they do not allow people to do this kind of stuff. They don't.
Yeah, and the magic is that they've tricked everyone into thinking that cars only run on gas, and you have to pay for electric bill every month, and you have to pay, you know, to receive energy in general. It's illegal some places to gather rainwater. People just like accept that they have to buy gas, water, and electricity, and it should all be free. So there is some sort of a cover up here.
Well, they fight wars over it. Look at the oil wars. Like, they're never going to let this go. They make so much money. Like, look at the Dulles brothers and all the money they pulled in from all the crap that they were in with the wars. And at the end of the day, it's all nonsense, you know.
That's
especially the Vietnam War. I mean,
there's a compelling, as I've been told, there's a compelling case pretty much anyone could make if they looked into it hard enough that stems back thousands of years of certain families having control. You know, and when I wasn't told that by just a nobody. And when I was told that, I was like, you know, I'm at the point where I believe Christ was an electric being and we could be like Christ. So I believe we are way more abundant and capable of great things than the system we're in allows us to think. And I don't blame anybody for not, I don't know. I don't even blame anybody for being wrong or into politics, or I'm not really mad at anybody anymore because the system is so overbearing. I guess you're right. That's still the one secret is who is it?
Well, for sure, it's billion-dollar companies because they're profiting on the way things are, and they're not going to profit if things change.
100%. It's, if I were to sum it up in my thoughts as to who controls this technology, this planet, literally, it's an amorphous, amalgamous blob of, you know, regulars and non-regulars that are contributing and not contributing to some kind of dynamic plot. Like, they're obviously scripting stuff along the way, so it's not hard to realize that there's somebody out there. Like, COVID was a big thing for everybody, but I don't know. It's just, it's not my forte anymore. I'd literally rather not know at this point who it is, because I learned so much of this creationism. I'd rather not know who are the destructors. You know what I mean? Like, it'd probably be a good thing to know, but I'm also not chasing that pony or whatever, right? So,
yeah, I mean, and the upside to that is that you're not declining into a state of perpetual black pill.
I was. Oh my God! Before I figured this stuff out, I was 100% black pill, dude. I bought a ton
Really?
of rice and beans and stuff because I thought we were going to war. Like,
Well, I'll tell you this, man.
Yeah.
You don't give off black pill vibes now. That's for sure.
only because I've gone through the loophole. So this stuff, like I said, what could you? I can't even imagine the life I would live if I had free energy. Genuinely. Like you don't need anything.
I'll be
You don't need
traveling the
anything.
world.
You would be traveling the world. I'd be
Yeah.
you could travel the cosmos if you had free energy. If you did it right, you could
Yeah,
make your own UFO.
what would you need
Okay.
money for?
I have a question for everybody on the panel. Would you do the jump though, knowing what happened to some of the people that we think maybe did the jump? Would you jump time? Would you time travel? Would you do it?
Well, yes and no. I don't think there's really time travel per se in a physical sense.
Well,
Like
portal travel. We'll reword that.
well, it's like you heard of the Montauk stuff?
Mhm.
It's kind of time travel like that, where you sit somewhere and then the field around you is kind of like foggy and you can peer through it. Like you can time travel in the sense of like holographic vision, like you can recreate something that happened in the past per se, but there's no really going back to it because it's already disturbed. The past is gone per se. Like you can only look at it through a foggy
some
lens.
weird accounts of Howard Hughes being other places when he shouldn't have been, that there are actual people, and Tim knows this, we did a show on it, where they discussed it when he was in a whole nother country, and it was very strange. And so I don't know, there's enough for me to be compelled to think that they have figured out some things, but I think it messes with you. Like everybody we've seen that does that, I think it comes with a cost. So that's why I'm curious for the panel. Would you do it? If you could do it, would you do it?
Yeah, it's engineering consciousness. And this guy right here, Viktor Grebennikov, I'll talk about him a little bit more. He had a bee's nest that you sat under and it would heal you per se. I guess YouTube doesn't like that word, so I apologize
That's
for saying
because,
that.
yeah, it's 'cause you said bees.
Yeah, so this
Wow.
is Viktor Grebennikov. He had something like a time travel device at Montauk where you sit in a chair and the field around you can be morphed into anything in the universe. Like when you're in a state space, you can condition a state space to direct energy flow. All of physics is about energy, and state spaces are the universe. So a human being, for instance, in a Cozy Rev mirror, can get all kinds of telepathy and maybe, teleportation going on. But the time travel thing is not a physical thing per se, in my opinion, studying all this physics. It's just like peering through the fog at an old TV. You're going and looking at the past. Your spirit can probably go and embed in that past state space and whatever you're trying to focus on or remote view. But it's not necessarily that like I can time travel back and see a dinosaur and then come back with a tooth or something like that. You know what I mean? It's not so much of like the mirrors come in, the smoke and mirrors metaphor. That's about time travel. That's about telepathy, smoke and mirrors. And
100%, I believe
yeah.
in telepathy because I've studied Puharic quite a bit and the nine. And so for sure, I believe that. But I also believe there's a physical manifestation that they figured out. Like,
Well, that
honestly,
could be.
Just because of the people that have around these cases stated, like there's people that saw him there and different things. So if not, it was a very realistic hologram or something. I'm not sure on that. But nevertheless, they are admitting now in a lot of these declassified things that they're releasing all about Puharic's work for sure lately, which is really interesting that they've never let that go before, The mental part of that is being verified, with the CIA docs. So
I think he was inventing some of this cool free energy like technology too. Heidi, I saw something about that the other day about Puharovich was actually like an inventor as well, which is I thought was just an interesting addition to his story.
I've heard the name before. He's probably in that
you
field.
have to. If you haven't been down the 9 and Puharik with what you do, it's fantastic. You have to. It's like such a fun dive. Even it won't mess you up too bad, except he does some weird. His experiments were in the 70s, so there's kids involved.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
not that nothing gets too deep as far as anything weird that way. So just that they were like space kids. It's like basically like that show. Oh my gosh, why can I never Stranger Things?
Yeah.
And Faraday cages. It's very interesting.
Children, sorry, Heidi.
Yeah.
Children younger than 7 are sometimes considered to be able to perceive the veil, or
100%.
you know, and so they can immediately perceive past. They don't need any of the technology. They don't need any of this. They just need a story. That's kind of the idea.
They're not really self-formed, right? And if we think back to the idea of short-circuiting your brain to be more in tune with source itself through not going to sleep and making yourself tired,
the veil.
We can think of that being directly correlated with not being completely embodied, right? Like 7 or 5-year-olds don't typically have the full capacity to make good decisions on their own. Now, like I was a camp counselor at the YMCA in high school, and I've seen some 5-year-olds that are extremely mature. And I don't know if that's, you know, because I live in America and things are in the water and food or whatever, but there's variations in that. But yeah, 100%, you know, being in tune with source is what your brain and heart is doing. Your lungs are constantly opening and compressing. Like there's a lot of ways to talk about it. But in a physics sense, yeah, all that stuff is real. They use kids.
Well,
that's what's scary.
And the whole situation with the ether and some of the hardest hit channels that I've seen as of recently, like a Steiner channel. She just speaks about Steiner, and it didn't have anything to do with like harmful situation or whatever. What they shut her down. Nope. And when you can see all this coming to fruition as this comes forward, right? And you read Steiner, then you go, oh, okay, that's why. Same thing with Puharik. You'll see. It's relevant.
There's a few. So to name off a couple of areas of physics that have been classified by the U.S. government that Mark Andreessen talks about. One is resonance. One is longitudinal electrodynamics. Another one is like the whole remote viewing thing and all the psychological aspects that are actually psychological aspects, like the whole idea of therapy and psychoanalytics, at least American world or in USA world, is completely nothing to do with anything actually physical. It's all emotive and interpretive. But there, another area of physics that's kind of gate kept is piezoelectrics. The idea of just compressing something and it generating a voltage.
We talked about that recently on the show. Kind of.
Yeah. Another one is just static electric, being something having a what do they call it? An electret property where it's sitting there resonating a static electric field. That's kind of covered up. You don't hear that too much. But there are so many different areas of physics that are covered up. And when you have things like weather manipulation on planet Earth, you know, it's kind of easy to see why the idea of phase conjugation is another area of physics that is kind of gate kept. We call it different things. 4-wave mixing is a name for it. There's, but it's implosion science. That's another area of physics that's gate kept. All kinds of areas. Grounding, the study of grounding, all kinds of stuff. But
do you get into Eric Dollard or Van Tassel and the Integratron any?
I've heard of Eric Dollard. I know I need to get into him because a lot of people talk about him. But
I think he's still alive, but he worked out at Van Tassel's dome that he built out there in the Mojave. And you got me thinking about it when you're talking about, you know, just electricity and stuff. And you said something about maybe there being like a light being associated with God. And they actually did some experiments out there where they said that they saw a little light entity show up in the room
Mm-hmm. Angels are real. What a
Is
blessing.
there a color associated with this phenomenon?
Color no, typically no.
Was that question like about chakras when you asked that question about color?
Yeah, you could definitely map it onto chakra systems. You could map it onto, say, where this whole episode's been about Kabbalah. That would be obviously my sort of framework. You could also say that there's obviously the Enochian component of like what you're saying about consciousness and being the adamantine man or the Shem or the Enoch or the Metatron. Like it all makes sense to me using more traditional frameworks, but obviously this is taking like a new kind of scientific way. So I'm quite interested in it. And I don't really know that much about it. Yeah.
Color is a frequency. And if you've ever heard of the photoelectric effect, you'll know that different colors can have different effects on different metals and different masses and different materials. So the photoelectric effect is kind of not what it is. It's not, it's more dynamic than that. It's a frequency matching thing between the source of the light and the thing that's hitting it. It's more dynamic than just a photoelectric effect. But we engineer this constantly and all the time. So I take that back. Yes, color is extremely important because color is frequency.
I've heard before that green is the 0 point color, but then there's also an emergent color, which is pink. Very similar to what Tim has in his background. I'm not calling out Tim, just saying for people watching.
Nice. Yeah, Dan Winter talks about that quite a bit as the molecular alignment of atoms and electrons themselves being a certain spin geometry attuned to their 0 point center. So I've heard this idea before, and it comes from a lot of the research on that comes from plants being green themselves. Like it's kind of common knowledge that people know. Supposedly plants aren't the color that they are. They're not actually green. It's just that they're emitting everything else that isn't green. And that's why we see it or something like that. But yeah,
no, that's true. Lisa's talked about this.
Yeah, that's the 0 point. In its sense, the leaf is a 0 point for the ambient electromagnetic waves and oxygen and all that kind of good stuff.
And the darker the green the leaf, the more dense the less light can pass through. But then the more translucent, the more emerald in quality the leaf, the less dense it is. It's kind of like a trick plants play. I'm sorry, I can't speak properly, but there is something to even the quality of the green. So I think that's really interesting.
I didn't do anything on it in this presentation, but color confinement is something I've been getting into because, you know, when we think about what is the source of light, like, so you've got a flashlight, where is that source actually coming from? Well, it's the light emitting diode, but what is the light emitting diode actually doing? It's, believe it or not, it's imploding an electrodynamic function, basically. Like you're sending something to this diode and out the end of it is a flash of light. Mainstream physics has literally no investigation into the propagation of lights, the origin of light itself, other than like color confinement. And that's a super complex topic itself. They like mainstream science absolutely murders all good description. They don't care about it sounding nice. So they'll sit here and tell you like, well, there's phases of electrons and protons and atoms. Those are phases, those are frequencies. But then there's flavors of neutrons. Like, what do you mean a flavor of a neutron? That doesn't, like, you literally can't engineer flavor at all unless you're a cook. And even that's like, you're not even talking about the same thing. But yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier. Some of the things that you've covered today and some of the vocabulary you've used, you know, early on you used supernatural and maybe a couple other words similar to that, which I don't disagree with that. But I think that I've seen where CERN, when they put out articles or even on their website, when they just describe what they do, they're describing a similar unified field theory with a different vocabulary, a more scientific vocabulary, a vocabulary that's a little bit more void of any kind of feeling. It's everything's got to be rigid and scientific and just fit into the model, right?
Well, so back to the whole Einstein thing. That really threw off everything from the ether. Everybody in the world at that time of Einstein believed in the ether. And they say that the Michelson-Morley experiment was the experiment that proved there was no ether. But we just watched the video saying, okay, you rotate it 90 degrees, so it's vertically attuned to the Earth's axis, longitudinally attuned, and you do get an effect. So the ether is real. So it's been they're basing all of their stuff on a bad theory in the first place. This is why they constantly come up with new things and have to express new variables.
This is just obfuscation all the way around, because most likely they use us for their energy harnessing, let's be honest. And if we figure that out, because we're vertical as well, that's just gonna freak everybody out. And then on top of it, they definitely don't think about, yes, you're right, angels are real, but so are demons, and so are a lot of things that can come through the ether. So, they know this stuff. Like, that's why they go to mystery schools and they pass it on to their progeny and keep this all within secret societies on and on and on since the beginning of time. This is why it is the way it is. I mean, and this is why I feel the best we can do is educate people so that someday, we can make a difference. I know
Heidi,
we can make a difference by changing our thought patterns, for sure.
It's interesting you said that, Heidi, about demons and them being able to travel between portals, because I read all of Plato's books, and his book Cratylus, with Socrates and himself and some other individuals, they actually say that demons were wise men, or men who died honorably. So these wise men knew how to travel from one place to another without the knowledge that we have. That if we're not wise enough to do that right now, but they were wise enough. And then later on, of course, in religion, they became ugly looking or hurtful or hateful, or whatever the case may be. But when I go back to Plato's books and read his books, they talk about how they're wise men, and that brings more understanding to what is being spoken today, because you have to be wise to be able to achieve these different traveling ways and stuff like that. And it's interesting that he brought up the tower from Nikola Tesla, because when he first started, I actually wrote it down. It was figure 8, the hydrogen fracturing process, and he was talking about the figure 8 with the picture on there, and that's the first thing I was thinking about was the Tesla tower. It's interesting because it's what it's called, the Wardenclyffe Tower, I think that's what it's called, or something like that. That's interesting, because you was talking about how there's so much energy up there, and that there was a way. There's a way to harness it, and Tesla was trying to harness that energy from up there. So yeah, I like this conversation a lot.
And not all things are, to your point, I definitely think there are some wise things, but I think there are some dangerous things. And I think that it's all levels. And if you're summoning, like, just putting this out there for those practitioners of magic, I always have to be the one.
I retired from that, Heidi.
Yes, I know, Jen. You don't talk to the spirits anymore because they lie. Dr. John D will tell us all about how much they lie and how lower level demons come through first. It's just like going to junior high, like the kids that come up first. You might not want to have your best friend be them first until you vet your people. Not saying never, but just vet your people. Don't play with Solomonic magic. Jen knows.
I couldn't agree more. I'll try to wrap this up here pretty quick. We've been going a while now. Appreciate you guys for hearing me out. I do speak about that a little bit at the end here, but just to speak on the magic aspect, all angels and demons come through you. You're tapped into the universe. Your intention brings them in, and depending on how you have your life set up, it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. It all takes practice, and a lot of people are consumed by the demons that are fed to them. Like, our society literally feeds us demons nonstop. And not to get too political or anything, but you can give kids drugs nowadays just for fun, basically. Like you get them, your kid's a little rambunctious, and then all of a sudden, he's acting up at school, and he's all of a sudden on drugs the next day, and a totally different human being. Well, that will literally allow demons into his life one way or another. The fact you're tapped in means your intention is literally ultra powerful. Like we physically don't understand how powerful humans are, but we've have all these crazy accounts of us doing straight up magic. Like the Jedis in Star Wars and stuff, they always supposedly are traumatized kids with special blood or something. The secret is you don't have to be traumatized. You can just work at it to do the magic.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to get through this part here, there's all kinds of good stuff. The 50-year nuclear battery developed by Paul Brown some time ago right here lasts for 50 years. China's making the same thing nowadays with beta volts. That's what this is. The MEG right here was Thomas Bearden's mechanical energy generator. I believe that's the acronym for it. It's solid state, meaning there's just pulses going into this thing, which is basically a triode vacuum or a triode transformer. Actually, that might be 2 coils there. Either way, pulsing the coils on this transformer gives you over unity energy. The antenna right here, this is by Stan Meyer. This thing simply reaches up into the atmosphere, collects a charge, and then dumps it into these capacitors in this induction coil. There's a switch here to control that. Wardenclyffe Tower, like you said, harnessing energy from the Earth. Nikola Tesla. It's worth remembering that Nikola Tesla was giving lectures 130 years ago. I put that in there a little bit earlier. But so you go from water fuel, magnetic over unity motors, ambient energy generators. Now we're going to plasma devices and a little bit more solid state than even this one. So there's the Z-pinch fusion. We already looked at that. This is the electrical particle generator from Stanley Meyer. So what he did was he took that gas processor that he had for his water fuel, and he ran argon through it. And in that process, it would lose electrons and actually bond with a little bit of the metal and would make an ionized argon that he ran through this tube with a pulse of coils. So you can imagine here, there's a little bit of an argon plasma in this tube that is magnetized. And every time you're going to pulse this coil, there's going to be a magnetic field created that's going to move the plasma through that thing. That's the electrical particle generator from Stan Meyer. That's a gate kept one. Yeah. This is the field emitter array, a spint array. You can just see that there's little points everywhere. These will oscillate naturally just because of the ambient electrodynamic waves floating throughout everywhere. It doesn't have to be 5G to put off a bunch of, electromagnetic radiation. It can just, these things can pick up broad spectrum, lots of electromagnetic radiation waves just from the Earth itself. This is a free energy microchip per se. This is the Z-pinch itself, the electric field in the middle, the magnetic field compressing it, the Z-pinch right here. The Correas, Paulo and Alexandra, a couple from Canada, and originally Panama, I believe, then Canada, and then back to Panama. They're gate kept because of their excess energy pulsed abnormal glow discharge reactor, which is basically a light bulb like the Z-pinch fusion thing, except for a little bit different. EVOs by Ken Shoulders. Ken Shoulders was a guy who worked with Hal Puthoff for a long time, and John Hutchinson, and a bunch of, he worked at Stanford Research Institute, and a crazy life. But his whole thing in a gist was developing the idea of a macroscopic electron, an EVO, exotic vacuum object. You can see here, this is an exotic vacuum object circuit. Cathode will pulse an EVO, a macroscopic electron, down the tube, and it will impact the anode. And on collapse, it will gain a charge. That's that. Plasma devices in solid state. Anti-gravity. February of this year, I had what I thought was an original idea, and it turned out to be true that bees are anti-gravity zero-point energy machines. I genuinely had this idea pop into my head after watching some of Stan Meyer stuff. And then they disrupt space-time and electrical phenomena. You can literally hear them buzz. Bees have wings. How are they anti-gravity machines? Well, typically wings are equivalent to sails on a sailboat, catching wind and riding currents. Bee flight is a different operation. They make their own currents and can travel independently of the ambient currents. They need the air to create a field of propulsion. Field propulsion is anti-gravity. Viktor Grebennikov, pictured on the right, used bees and other bugs to create anti-gravity machines. You see here, it's a little like pogo stick looking thing. The EM drive from NASA and Frank Mead's plasma propulsion also uses field propulsion in one vector, whereas the bee is in its own manipulable vector, aka scalar field. The anti-gravity part of bees is the ionizing bubble of turbulence they ride in. There's been research done on this, all kinds of stuff. You can think of this, man. You can think of this bee riding right here and this being pointed downwards. And that will be the field that it creates, and it's going to loop back in on itself. Field propulsion. So this is Viktor Grebennikov's stuff down here. He's explaining why he made this, how he came upon this stuff. And it's on Rex Research. This is a great website for all kinds of free energy and physics that relate to this stuff. Inventors, machines, all kinds of stuff. Rex Research. Up here, this is what we're talking about, some of the crazy things that's happened and some of the things I've stumbled upon. I realized bees are anti-gravity machines, February of this year. And then check this out. I'm going to click this link. You can see the title here, The Role of Non-Metricity on Neutrino Behavior in Bumblebee Gravity. So when I click that link, let me screen share this. The Role of Non-Metricity on Neutrino Behavior in Bumblebee Gravity by Yuxan Shi and A.A. Ejrano Filbio, whatever. Department of Physics, East China University, Science and Technology, May 20th, 2025. I genuinely don't know what to say. China is like researching and building out my ideas, And they're not my ideas, but you know what I mean?
They're a collaboration of ideas that you're using.
Exactly.
I think China knows what's up, man. They I was looking at something the other day, and China sent in a team of researchers into the lost city of Lhasa in Tibet, and they were looking through the Vimana stuff, the alchemical flight, and they said somebody in the Chinese government actually said that they were going to implement that stuff into their space program.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it a bit. Like right here, our government classified this. We're not allowed to make these in the United States, nuclear batteries, even though they would last for 50 years. China sells them now. Like you can go to I think I list the website down here somewhere.
Madam Shi is a Kalachakra Tantrika. I just wanted to say that. She's one of the first of the CCP that is a Tibetan Buddhist. It's quite a feat. And she actually hosted the World Buddhist Conference, I think 2024. Any year that ends in a 6, that's when you could do that. So I just think it's interesting that what Tim's talking about, like they probably have it more integrated. It's Chinese is also a dragon culture. Every Chinese person loves the number 8. So and Chinese language can be read right or left or right, up or down, or down and up. So it's very flexible. So you could say that that's an immediate like dragon quality of a language if it can be read in different ways. So I think there's something about what you guys are saying for sure.
I'll have more to say on that in a minute about language, but so that's Viktor Grebennikov. That's Bumblebee Gravity. They're anti-gravity machines. Why? Because they make a bubble of turbulence around them. That is anti-gravity. That is your own gravity field. And then Larry Reed's Lockheed Martin engineer. Pulsed array beam operating modes. This is a UFO right here. This is his latest work, which he just published last month, I believe, quoting Bob Grenier, which was nuts to me because, I've been following Bob Grenier for a while now, and to see Lockheed Martin, Larry Reed, quote him several times in this work, his null space vacuum depressurization paper he just published. is bananas, because what he's saying, right, even the title alone is a hint. Null space, vacuum depressurization. State space, vacuum implosion. That's what he's talking about right here. He's seeing futuristic ball lightning technology. This is at the end of his newly released paper. We can do this. We could build these. Humans could ascend to the stars. This is the EM drive. This is Sal Paez's work right here. These are Larry Reed's stuff. I guess I didn't put Franklin Mead's stuff, but you can look into him as well. Scientific conclusion is unified field theories or theories of force unification are a dime a dozen, attempting to explain energy itself by combining the interactions of the four fundamental forces, which are strong and weak nuclear force as 1 and 2, electromagnetism as 3, and then gravity as 4. You combine those, you get a unified field theory. These are actually 11 different resources that could all lead you to a unified field theory of some kind. A lot of them are things I've already referenced through here. I won't go through most of them now, but just to shed light on another guy who's extremely important is Harold Aspdin, or Aspdin. I don't know how you say that, but Harold Aspdin, physicist, engineer, extremely smart man. He figured it out. Orest Bedri, he's the guy that I was going to tell you about in our previous conversation when we were talking about people not saying stuff because they work at NASA. Orest Bedri was a guy who basically built their IBM computers and had a new relationships and measurements for gravity physics. He had all kinds of worthy knowledge that he wrote down, just never published till he died. Stan Meyer talks about energy because he saw it physically coming from the hydrogen in a cold cathode reaction. He said that the hydrogen molecule was a universal energy aperture, allows energy in. Hal Puthoff actually has a paper called The Ground State of Hydrogen, which explains the ether in some sense, but more in a quantum quackery type of sense. Dan Winter's on here, Tom Bearden, Jason Verbelli. He's a cool guy I've gotten the chance to talk to. He was the protege of John Searle, the guy who made this device. Protege of John Searle. It's Jason Verbelli. Yeah, a bunch of stuff here. Here's my speculation. We call the universe many names, but superconductive is best. It always, as far as we know, the universe is going to keep conducting itself into eternity, right? As far as we know. My stipulation, electrodynamics are scale invariant representative nature in the most supernatural sense. The four forces combine in plasma dynamics. From earth weather to solar storms, plasma is the exponential interoperator between all phase transitions. Solid, liquid, gas, plasma, but it is plasma in between. Plasma has the physical origin of inertia, mass, and energy. Inherent to its locale in eruptious double-layer magnetic sheath, it is the physics of creation. Ball lightning is macroscopic electron bundling on scale with a microscopic electrons, the scale invariance from stars to circuits. It's the technology of creation, literally physically hiding in front of our face, sometimes as symbolism we've been conditioned to ignore. Think of your eyes, think of the eye of Horus. All religions are, they say, a way to deal with the material. Okay, then that's not a religion. That's just a way to deal with the material. The Vimanas, the crosses, the Vajras, all of the ancient religious architecture, symbology, it all points to the physics of creation. Language of inter-universal operability is catastrophic disclosure. Language of inter-universal operability is catastrophic disclosure. You have a spark of enlightenment that allows you to transcend. Microtubule research and physics say so. So where does this sum up? Right here in the ancient symbology and architecture. These pyramids are gravity diodes with an inner working structure that could basically do anything you want to. The pyramids on Earth could have been Wi-Fi. I'm not even joking. The boats from ancient Atlantis with the arcs on the middle, these things probably flew. You think about it, they could easily make, with whatever these things are, maybe they're EVOs, they could easily make a field of propulsion around them, underneath them. The arcs themselves were technologies. The yin yang in Chinese mythology is said to have been born from chaos when the universe was first created. To me, this looks a lot like voltage, amperage, and fluxes. Like this is what this is a tornado in a bubble. That's the universal secret nobody wants you to know. It's a tornado and a bubble. A tornado in a bubble. A double bubble of tornadoes and double bubbles of bubbles. That's what this ship is doing in some sense. You can imagine a plasma sheath riding underneath here and being, pulsed down or conducted through whatever this device here is. So there's a lot more grandiose pictures of stuff that'll really give you the hint. I didn't find it in time for this presentation. I probably should have. All of this stuff really hit me at the Cosmic Summit because a guy named Tim Hogan was talking about ancient Egypt.
Yeah, Timothy Hogan.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? Matter of fact, when you was talking about that, I had pulled this out because I was like, who was talking about that? I can't remember. I had to go through the names. So yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, these were
he did some really
UFOs.
Impressive stuff though.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Timothy Hogan, him and Scott Walter had a pretty impressive thing that they did there.
Oh, did you go to the thing on Monday?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it. I was wondering if it was good.
Yeah.
Damn. Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, did you go to the one that Ashton did? But that was a Monday too, right? Monday morning.
Yeah, I was actually holding the camera for that one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there wasn't a tripod nearby, so I was sitting there. That's kind of hard to sit there and stand with a camera for an hour and a half. But yeah, it was crazy. It was so much fun. But yeah, here's a bunch of sources, a bunch of cool stuff to check out. Rex Research, the Correa's work. Somebody put a resonant gravity field coil, which seems to line up with all this physics on Scribd. Stan Meyer's research on a more robust and compactified version is on stanslegacy.com. Rho Sigma for free is on Archive. China's modern day battery that you can visit the website to but can't buy because it's locked because of America, just being America. Ken Shoulder's work, permittivity transitions, that's kind of a hint in and of itself because the permittivity is the static electric field of all beings. It's what the flux density is of the electric field of all things. Permittivity transitions, meaning they're kind of changing your entire field. This one's nuts. I'm not going to say too much about it. We could watch it if you'd like. This is Larry Reed's paper, the new one that he just put out. That's also a hint to this creationism. Null space, vacuum depressurization. This is the like the Van Allen radiation belts that you were talking about, and the or maybe that I brought that up. What's the Oort cloud? That could be this, the null space vacuum depressurization kind of idea. Book on free energies, free energy devices. There's a ton of them in this. This is on Archive. You could just look up book on free energy devices. It's basically what I tried to do here, but in a more much more academic fashion. So that's some of this, some more sources, and that's it. 35 slides. Thanks for listening to me, guys.
Oh, yeah, man.
Only 3 hours.
I felt like I'm not even gonna lie to you. I have a Kindle Scribe, bro, and I literally have like 5 pages of notes that you were talking about. Like I was sitting here taking notes. When you see me looking down or looking across this way to my other screen, I was taking notes like crazy because I really enjoy how people present their information and do their due diligence and research and presenting it to people like me who may not be as intelligent as you are on this subject. This is very interesting because just about 3 months ago, I decided to read a lot of books about physics, especially from like Max Planck, Georgie Lemaitre, Fred Hoyle, and so many different individuals. I just started digging into physics a lot more, only because of the simple fact that a lot of it relates to what these ancient people were trying to tell us in their most ancient ways, and their, the limited vocabulary that they had through symbolism and pictographic scripts and so on and so forth. So yeah, I really appreciate this.
And 100%. And I was the same way, and I've been on it for 2 years almost now. I was just going to show this energy from the vacuum series by Tom Bearden and all them. It's great. It's amazing. They basically talk about implosion without knowing it. What they talk about pulse width modulation without knowing it. You know, going back and looking at some of these videos, it's been really revealing, just on like on a functional basis. Like you watch what these people make and try to figure out what links that to everything else. What's the scale invariance principle at work here? And it's an electrodynamic thing. It's a phenomena of supernatural origin. Like I said earlier, the electron action is a mirror of whatever's happening down in the quantum verse per se. And it's all electrodynamic. So yeah, it's awesome, man. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. I've tried to put a lot in here. Like I said, I've been on this for 2 years now, and it really does explain everything. Like for instance, this is a great boat transporting the sacred boat. So it's a boat within a boat. That's like a boat or a bubble within a tornado, or a tornado within a bubble.
Yeah.
What's the symbolism here? Like there's birds. It's not really, doesn't look like water. You know what I mean? Like it's easy to see. Like when you know the structure of a diode and you look at every pyramid on the planet, you're like, oh my God, they're tapping into the longitudinal electrodynamics of the Earth itself. These were ultimately beautiful machines. They absolutely knew what they were doing. You do not build these things without knowing every single aspect of creation. That's what people don't understand, because it's gatekept and it's hard to come across that. For some reason, you ask the what is a pulse doing question, and you figure it out. You try to figure out what electricity is, and you figure it out. And I think that's what the ancients did. I know that's what the ancients did. You can just look at their stuff, man. Like there's a lot of like even in the stonework, there's a lot of stuff they can't replicate in like concrete mixes that were much more dense and hold up for longer periods of time in the ancient days. Like even ancient Rome or Greece, you know, we're replicating what these people built, what those people knew, because they built human monuments to creation.
Yeah, I think there's a renewed interest in all things happening over there in Egypt right now. I just saw an article the other day where Egypt's economy is up, way up. And I think it's people our consciousness perhaps is raising. People are, despite the buffoonery that they put out there with their head archaeologist and all that, their antiquities guy, despite all that ridiculous narrative that they're still pushing, people are still going there to see this stuff, because I think inherently we know that there's something more.
Why did that happen again?
What happened? Oh, did he like lose us? Maybe he.
But yeah.
Oh, you muted yourself again now, Chief.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he
the
muted
technical difficulties. There
he
it
was
goes.
Right.
His phone probably died.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh no, right? That is a possibility.
That is possible.
It's actually happened to somebody on my show before. Oh, he's back. Yeah, I have actually had somebody their phone died.
Oh, there we
he
go.
goes. He's
I
back.
think he's rapping. So.
Back in effect.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like
It's all good.
I blacked out because the volume just shuts off and I can't hear you guys, but I can hear you, or I can see you speaking. So it's like, I don't know, fix this quick. But not to interrupt. Sorry, what was we were talking about?
Oh,
I was just saying, I think I was saying the last thing, and I was just talking about Egypt and a renewed interest in this stuff.
Oh.
You had the pyramid up there, and I was just thinking about how I think there's a renewed interest where people out there really want to know more about this stuff now, maybe more than ever.
Oh yeah, and I mean we talked to, I know I did, I think you did too, Nick. I saw it on your channel. The guy that released the Campfire stuff. He said he's got all kinds of scans that aren't public yet, and that show more pyramids buried, more caverns, more catacombs, more tunnels, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah, I think he actually said that on the thing that I put out. He said that that they got tons of other stuff under there. Wasn't the vase? I could be wrong. Wasn't some of the vases at that place from underneath the pyramids?
Yeah. Yep. Matt BL, I think.
Brought them. Yeah.
Yep.
That shit was wild. I didn't realize what I was filming until after the fact. I was like, oh, that's where they came from.
Yeah, we came in literally so it was at 2 p.m. is when we walked into the vase thing, and they were just wrapping up, so we could touch them. But yeah, they were there too. And those vases, again, those are way more mathematically accurate to symmetry, to their own inherent symmetry, than anything we make today. Nothing comes close. And it speaks to them understanding creation, whereas we literally won't let you understand creation. All this stuff is, I was talking about the fields of physics that are still gatekept. It's national security. So,
Yes, sir. Did anybody have anything they want to ask or add before we wrap it up? All right.
No, I got all my stuff out the way. I'm definitely going to go back and research a lot of the stuff. I took a lot of the names that I have like 10 or 15 names that he was mentioning. And I took some of those videos, put them down on here. So yeah, I might have do a deep dive on this tonight just because I enjoyed this conversation that much. It was very informative, bro. Hey, hands off, man. I got to give you your clap.
Yeah,
bro. Good shit, man. Good shit, bro.
Thank
you. I really do appreciate that, Chief. Yeah, and you pulled that off in like pretty much a few days. So it's pretty impressive. Thank you, man.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to come on. I love talking about this, and it's my favorite thing in the world now, the electric universe, because, like I said, it explains creation, and nobody else has even talked. Like, physics doesn't even care to try and explain it. They're all invested in some divergent thing of a thing that was divergent in the first place. Quantum mechanics is a divergent of ether and whatever that was going to be. It's not necessarily what humanity was pushing or striving towards. Quantum dynamics. So it's crazy, man. I started researching all this stuff. I come to the electric universe, I come to plasma physics, and then I start hearing Hal Puthoff go on Joe Rogan and talk about this, where I'm sitting here like with me and some other guys that I've come along with learning, and we're just like, what the hell is going on, man? China wrote a paper on anti-gravity bees, basically. Like, what a life. It's an honor to come on here. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate it.
Thank you, dude. No, I really appreciate it. And anytime you want to come back on, you got something to present, just let me know. When William comes on, if you want, maybe if it works out, we could get you on with him as well, because I know you know who he is.
Sweet. Yeah, we hung out at Cosmic Summit.
Oh, he's a funny motherfucker. I like that.
Yeah, he's pretty.
Yeah. Yo, you know how I met him? This is how I was like, yo, I'm gonna like this guy. He walks up to me. I don't know who the fuck he is. I'm standing outside smoking a cigarette. And he comes up to me, he's like, yeah, so I thought I might have been able to find somebody here more intelligent than me, and it hasn't happened yet.
He didn't run into me yet, man.
Motherfucker. I looked at him, I was like, yo, what? And then he's like, yeah, someone he mentioned something, they told me to dumb it down, and he pulls out this book and he starts showing me like these cartoons that he drew to try to explain like some. I was like, dude, awesome. You're a fucking pisser, bro. I was like, I'm gonna like this guy. And he was a cool dude, man. So I definitely want to get him on.
Did you take off y'all shoes and socks when y'all went to
I forgot.
I definitely did. I felt the change, and I felt when I took my boots off and my socks and I put them on them stones, man, I felt the tingling. It was a totally different feeling. And then when I'm outside most of the time in my front yard, I usually keep my socks and shoes off, only because I like to ground myself when I'm out there and stuff like that. Read a book, sit a chair on the grass and just read a book and something. Man, that was definitely a different feeling. So when we go up there next year, you guys got to go up there and do that.
Yeah, I totally forgot to do that. Even when I went back on Tuesday, I was like, fuck, I totally forgot to take my shoes off. But
yeah, it's crazy, right? It's a giant silicon ball in the middle of nowhere. Like, how did that happen? Maybe it's a macroscopic EVO.
Weird, yeah. And it was in the shape of the pyramid.
Yeah.
But all right, yeah, I'll let everybody again, Chief, thank you so much. And like I said, you're always welcome on. And if I get William on, we'll try to get you on as well. I'm gonna let everybody else plug their show again real quick before we wrap this up. Heidi, what is up, Heidi Love? Please let everybody know where they can find your work.
Of course. Thank you so much for the presentation and the chat. I enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on and learned a lot. So this was awesome. Thanks again, boss, for having me, and everybody else. Thank you. And hope everybody has a good one. Unfilteredrisespodcast.com or your Podchasers, wherever you like to find that, or find me on Patreon if you want to learn more about the Mormons.
Yeah, I love it. Headless just popped back up. Perfect timing. Headless, what's going on, man? Let everybody know where they can find your shit, please. Your stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find me on X or on YouTube. Just look up Headless Giant, and I do a mailbag show where you send me your emails with any sort of strange phenomena that has occurred to you. So send that to me at headlessgiantpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Headless. I appreciate it. And get those emails out to him, all right, please. And we got the fratter himself, Jin the Ninja.
What is up? Thank you guys so much. Appreciate the panel and Chief. It was really fun. I learned a lot. I don't know that much. I'm the first to say about this anyway. So if you want to, I guess I plugged my show at the beginning, so I'll plug the Grey Lodge at the end. So if you're interested, Friday Night Gnostic Mass, speculative Gnosticism. We're doing a multi-part series. We just finished Aether Punk. So that was really cool. It's like a speculative futurism about lunar punk meets solar punk and trying to sort of find the secret third thing. So we're back to Welcome to Hyperborea this week, and we're going to talk about meta mythologies. So check that out live on X every Friday night.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. And we got Tim. Tim, please let everybody know what is up.
Yeah, you could find me at Six Sensory Podcast. I spell that out, SIX. I'm on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Instagram, Patreon. Thanks, Chief. Awesome stuff. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you inviting me. And I appreciate everybody else who's here. This was great. I'm just happy to be a part of it. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you, as always, sir. And we got Tyrone, my man. What is going on, brother? Please let everybody know where they can find your amazing work.
Awesome. You can find my book on Amazon, Journey Through the Origins of History. Like I said, it was bestseller earlier. I have a YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Rebirth of the Word. I enjoy sharing this stuff. If anybody want to have a discussion with me, I love to talk to it. Heidi, I got to get in contact with you because I just did an article on the Mormons. So
I used to be one, so I'd love to chat.
Oh yeah, I did a deep dive on that, and it's funny that you mentioned that. So yeah, everybody, I really appreciate every one of you guys. We all have a piece of the puzzle, and if we work together, there's no telling what we might see.
I totally agree with you, bro. Thank you very much, man, for coming on. And finally, Chief, let everybody know what's up.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a blessing, an honor to come on, talking to you guys. It's always fun to discuss creation, in my opinion. So I'm just kind of Chief Dinger on X. I post there sometimes. I post a lot of cool stuff. I think I've garnered some support. Whatever, it's cool. Hit me up on there if you want to chat or anything. I can give you some information on more of the research I've done, tried to portray here. The one thing I would wrap it up with is the remote viewing thing is too real. So if you wanted to do it, I think Bob Greenyer nails it on the head when he says short circuit your brain, stay awake when you're trying to sleep. Like, get in that groggy state of consciousness where things kind of flow. And people say we need to wake up to the reality of our world. Well, we need to go get a good night's rest first, dream about this world we could have, and then wake up, because that's when the consciousness switch from regular brain to pineal gland happens. And the natives speak in the Arctic circles to them speaking to they say they can speak to their ancestors through the auroras. Well, that's electrodynamic microtubule phenomena. What's happening there? It's literally neurology. The plasma in the atmosphere splits up the atmosphere a little bit. It splits up the pulses of neurons in your brain a little bit. So yeah, magic's real. Jedi plasma tricks are real. All of it's real. It's been a blessing. Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you, the rest of the guys, and ma'am. So pleasure. Thank you.
Of course. No, thank you. One thing I do want to add, actually, is very interesting. You mentioned Bob's name again. He was the only person there that when I spoke to about occultism actually entertained my shit, like had a smile and kept talking to me about it. Like, I think he understands a lot more than most people think.
Oh yeah. The occultism is literally screaming creationism. in our face every single day. And Bob Greenyer is like a master of walking you down the trail as to what this symbol means in relation to physics of the universe. So yeah, he's an amazing guy, and it was a absolute glorious blessing to be able to hang out with him at the Cosmic Summit. So.
Yeah, he was a cool motherfucker for sure. Yeah. But again, thank you all for coming on. That was an amazing show. I appreciate everybody in the chat. I mean, fuck, it was like the same people here from the beginning to the end. That's what's up. I really appreciate it. And again, for the other rejects on the show, I know it was a long one, and I appreciate you all here. And that is the end of another Occult Rejects. Until the next one, everybody be well. Later.